Hello and welcome back to the SMITE Pro League. Our first set of the day is done, and what a great set you may have just missed out on. Be sure that you go back and watch the Oni Warriors make history, a 13-0 record from their inception all the way up until now to make history to have the longest set win streak. And now we move into our second set of the day. I can't believe it's hard to follow up on a set like that. I'm Jim Mack. I got Trelly here joining me on the desk. We got the Eldritch Hounds and the Camelot Kings, where, as in the Chaos side division, Oni Warriors, they seal the deal over there. They've been first seed, at least guaranteed for a while. A lot of standings implications on this set in particular, Trelly, because Camelot Kings, they now need to get this win if they want to have a chance to overtake the Highland Ravens later on, because now Ravens one game up ahead of them. Eldritch Hounds, they've got to make sure that they can at least push 2 full sets in order to have, I'm going to say, to have a chance at being able to make it here at the end. They would have to win out to go 6-4, and then they'd also have to hope that the Camelot Kings beat out the Highland Ravens. That way they have an opportunity to get through there. So order side division, still a lot up for grabs for these top 3 teams in order to make it through there, Trelly. I'm excited to see what goes down between these 2 squads.
Yep, I mean, you said it yourself. The standings are very important at this point, so any one of those 3 teams getting a win or getting a loss is massive. And I think that the Hounds have been trending upward. The Kings, unfortunately, have been trending downward. Could be interesting regardless, but I want to see some improvement, and I'm excited for this one for sure.
Yeah, I think the Eldritch Hounds definitely a team that coming into this season, I'm not going to say had low expectations, but we didn't have this level of expectation of them. I mean, we weren't expecting a breakout season like this, especially for a few of these players who haven't even been able to be in the SPL prior. I mean, 2 of the players have not had pro-level competitive experience just yet, that being Oathhh and Quig. VaporishCoast having console pro experience, but not being able to jump up to the SPL. Now joined with Ducky and BennyQ as well. This whole team is one that is just completely blowing expectations out of the water. And BennyQ is, bro, he's losing his mind.
Did you just miss him? He just checked to make sure his pits didn't smell right as the camera went to him. He goes, oh, man. He just noticed we got him right as he went to do that. But hey.
No, you know what he was saying? He said, Does that smell me?
Nah,
that's the Camelot Kings smell that we're smelling right now.
He said that's the smell of a winner. He's pretty hyped, and now it's back on him. Poor Benny. But you're right. This team has been looking real solid. All smiles in the booth, and I'm thinking, definitely some players to watch. Oathhh has been absolutely popping off for this squad. Sometimes foregoing ganks and kills to get some farm, but he's one of those junglers that shows up at level 20 and can make a big splash in these team fights, which is sort of exactly what you would want. On the flip side, CaptainTwig does not jungle that way. Their jungle presence does not really mesh. So I'm thinking Oathhh could have a good matchup here just because Twig's a little bit more lackadaisical, whereas Oathhh, he can get aggressive. He can go for those early cringe ganks, which can really change the way that an early lane starts, right? If you get a first blood, you invade their buffs, you make sure their waves are respawn, and that really does start a snowball effect to make sure they can't just stay level in lane.
Yeah, Oathhh has really been sticking to his guns on a few picks in particular. The Bakasura, the Susano, and the Thor have kind of been the 3 that he runs to as often as he can, assuming he doesn't get banned out before some of those selections do go through. So Oathhh definitely on an upward trend so far for himself in his first SPL debut season. And I got to talk about Ducky as well. I mean, seasons past, we talk about Ducky. We talk about usually a player who's sitting on one of the bottom-seeded teams, doesn't really have the most successful of seasons, usually kind of just sits around the lower middle of the pack as far as the solo lane is concerned, but Ducky has really stepped up for the season. His SPL tenureship, along with BennyQ, really seems to have helped elevate this squad.
Yeah, I would say so. Ducky knows, number 1, when to rotate and when to sit back when a fight's not good, and I think that's one of the more important things you can learn as a solo laner. Like, hey, is my presence actually needed? Should I stay back and just get some farm? Should I waste my teleport because we could fight a Gold Fury later on? Those are the kind of things that Ducky, I think, has been really on point with, because sometimes, the rotation of a tanky warrior right before an objective fight can be insane. And I think Ducky's been pretty good about, hey, I'm going to be able to match that pressure. I'm going to be able to show that presence. And that's something that the Hounds as a whole have definitely been working on, and I've been real impressed.
Yeah, the Eldritch Hounds have definitely been a team that's impressed, I think, everybody, not just us here on the team, but even the fans at home and everybody watching by. The Camelot Kings on the other side, the reigning world champions, a team that started off really strong this season, a 4-0 beginning in their first 2 weeks, and then a not so hot immediately after that, a 1-3 performance in their last 4 sets. It's been on the downward swing for the Camelot Kings, and this is a set that could definitely try and pick them up, try and push them back over towards that top seed in the division, because remember, they've got to face off against the Highland Ravens later on this week to try and potentially fight for that first seed. A must-win here for the Camelot Kings if they want to try and keep that first seed potential alive for themselves. And I think a lot of it's going to have to maybe swing just across the board. It really feels like the last couple of sets, CaptainTwig hasn't been fully in his groove. Variety's been camped pretty heavily over in his lane. I would say that maybe some of the big highlights for this team has been the consistency of BigManTingz in the mid lane, though.
Yeah, Tings is always pretty consistent. I tend to agree the duo lane has been looking fine, but that right side of the map, right? Twig, I think his god pool is coming to question. A lot of Hebo and, not... And it's interesting because sometimes he just absolutely pops off on that pick, but wasn't having the most success. And because of that, Variety wasn't getting any ganks. He was falling down and getting camped pretty heavily, which, to be fair, is something that happens a fair bit to Variety. It's not like he's unused to getting camped over in his lane, but because of that, he isn't able to make those impactful rotations that I was talking about with Ducky, those sort of things. So the right side of the map certainly does need a switch up here, whether that's just mindset or maybe God pool entirely. I do expect to see, number one, some change-ups in that department, and if so, I think the Camelot Kings will look a little bit more consistent. Even with the fact that they've been falling down a bit in some of these matchups, I still think should be favored slightly, maybe like a 55-45 situation here towards the Eldritch Hounds, just by nature of we know what the Camelot Kings are capable of.
I think for me, maybe seeing which iteration of the Camelot Kings we get in a matchup like this. We know the Eldritch Hounds love to play this aggressive early game, try and finish these games out by around 30 minutes. Maybe not necessarily avoiding the late game, but trying not to drag out to the late game. Camelot Kings, a team much more known to go to the late, but when they've made their early strides, when they're rotating Variety out of Soul Lane to go for duo ganks at 12, 15 minutes of the game and trying to get aggressive on the map, shows that they've at least got some mix-up in their playstyle. So I wonder which of the two versions of the Camelot Kings that we're going to get today up against the Eldritch Hounds.
Yep, and that is the question. Is it the Twig finding early success, getting off to a good start, and just absolutely dominating the map? Or is it more, Variety's getting first blood, we have to give up pressure on the right side of the map. Hopefully, Jarcorrr and Genetics are able to come through and make these impactful rotations. Both equally possible in a situation like this when they haven't been riding that momentum of stringing together wins.
Yeah, in an important set like this, it's always fun to see what the players have to say about their direct matchups. We had a chance to sit down with a couple of players, one from each of the teams. Let's hear what they had to say about this set.
My team are a little bummed out because we wanted to have the 4-0 weekend again, or 2 wins this weekend. So we're kind of bummed, but I think we have a good path that we're learning on, and if we just iron out the kinks, will be great. I think the Kings have been stinking it up a little in the recent games. I don't know if their mental's crumbling or they just really hate the meta, but they've been losing to the quote-unquote lower-end teams. So maybe their mental's just in the bin.
Can't say really about the team, but lately myself, I think it doesn't feel good to just lose to 2-0 and 2-1 this weekend, when there is game that you probably should have won this week. Then there is game that should be close, so many scenarios that you can play differently. So I think at least it just doesn't feel good at all.
I think everyone's done a great job, all the rookies, Coast, Oathhh, Quig. I think they've done phenomenal.
I think the Hounds are a really good team. I think the duo lane is really good. I think the combo Coast and Quig are really good together, and they're surrounded by really good players too.
I think my team's really confident going into the Kings games next week, since we've been doing rather well, all things considered. So I'm confident going forward.
So it could be a battle of the mentals between these two teams, Charlies. It seems that the Eldritch Hounds, every single one of them, feeling real good about the wins that they've gotten. The rookies really performing well. And maybe on the opposite side here for the Camelot Kings, a bit of a lower mental for themselves, coming off of a 1-3 set total for their last couple of weeks of play after a 4-0 start.
Yep.
Doesn't feel great whenever you're going off a big loss streak after starting out the season so strong.
Yep, momentum. It's a big driving factor for how you're going to play the early game of these sets, and in this case, I think, listening to Ducky, they do sound extremely confident, which is something that you would expect given the Hounds' record as of recently and how well I think the duo lane has been playing. We got a lot of shouts about Coast and, of course, Quig and how well they've been able to bounce off each other, so should be an exciting match, especially over in the duo.
Yeah, I think that this is going to be a very fun set to watch and one that you're not going to want to miss out on. Let's delay no further and jump into the picks and bans for game number 1 between the Eldritch Hounds and the Camelot Kings. Kings at 5-3 right now, second seed in the division. Eldritch Hounds at 4-4, trailing right behind them. A big win here could really help to elevate the Eldritch Hounds to potentially maybe jumping up into that first seed spot. It's going to take not only wins from them today, but wins for the remainder of their weekend and maybe banking on some extra losses as we can go through, and then always plus minus, head-to-head, everything like that factors in. I'm not going to pretend to know all the plus minus math for these teams off the top of my head. That's definitely one thing that we'll know as the weekend continues on. As first bans do roll through, nothing out of the ordinary for these two teams. Eldritch Hounds will ban away the Hercules and Yemoja. Opposite side, Kings will take away Vamana and Hell. All top of the meta gods so far, and no surprises to be seen yet.
Nope, not yet. But I think both of these teams may be looking for some jungle pressure in the early, or maybe just focusing on support picks. I think the Hounds and the Camelot Kings are both a team that are able to, play through their dual lanes, as we've talked about. Their junglers have so much weight around the map. It's going to be interesting. I think that these teams are very similar in the ways that they like to try and play through their hard carries, but also farm-wise, I think, can be something that they fight over a fair bit. The Eldritch Hounds, thinking about this one, and it will be the Horror. It's definitely a smart pick if they're not trying to grab it for themselves. The Camelot Kings will swoop that up at really any opportunity if given the chance. My question now becomes, are you trying to focus something like the Afro? Is that even a pick that the Camelot Kings are worried about? Just because it hasn't had much success, if not in some Jake's hands, or I guess Hardy Wind has had some success on it as well. But Quig has liked to go to it at times, and because of that, maybe it's something that's on the Camelot Kings radar as well.
Yeah, Awesome Jake, Genetics, and Hurrywin. So far, the only players who have found a single win on the Aphrodite, at least, amongst the SPL in this phase. So maybe Camelot Kings might leave this one open and bank on maybe a potential loss coming that way. But nope, they'll take the safe route, ban away the Aphrodite away from themselves. A little bit of history, at least on these two teams, Trelly. Last time they faced off, it was a 2-0 for the Camelot Kings, both games about 33 minutes in length. Game 1, a very close one, ends with only about a 4K gold deficit between the two teams, so a very hard-fought battle there. Second game, maybe not so much. A bit more of a blowout there for the Camelot Kings. So definitely a team that the Eldritch Hounds, now given the time that they've had to start of ramping up this season, feels like this is a moment now where the Eldritch Hounds can maybe try and fight back. And they'll do so by taking a first pick Martikros for themselves.
Yep, Marty very strong, especially in BigManTingz' hands. So if you're going to give that up, probably not a smart call, so the Eldritch Hounds are going to grab it. Curious if it's going to go over to BennyQ or VaporishCoast, just because it doesn't really scream to me a Coast pick. He has been liking these hard carry, auto attack, stim ADCs in that lane, but Marty also has had success in the dual lane, so to hold on to the ambiguity of that pick. But what do the Camelot Kings grab in return? They know that, number one, there's going to be a Marty in play, and it looks like Nox and Hachi are the hovers. Those buffs to Hachiman have definitely been treating him well. He's been very highly prioritized from just about every team in the league for good reason. Hachi's got some great clear, some great 1v1 potential, good CC, as well as just safety. You know, with that mounted archery, you can pretty much get out of trouble whenever you need.
So Nox, Hachiman for Camelot Kings, dangerous duo lane. And that Nox being one of the more potent mage ADCs that we've seen so far this phase. Guan used Cirquet on the opposite side, though, Trell, and Cirquet has been doing a whole lot. Well, 58% win rate, you might not think whole lot of winning, but has been doing and providing a whole lot of pressure for teams. Early game, definitely the name of the game for a god like this one, and certainly one that Oathhh has piloted a couple times to decent success. And rounding out the draft, the Camelot Kings did this in one of their sets. Cerberus over in the solo lane for variety. This is the god and the game specifically where we saw the Camelot Kings kind of flip the script for themselves, where they went from being this sit back and wait till late game to try and play that more aggressive early style.
Yep, love this pick. The Cerberus solo has been looking real good on variety. He does not miss these stuns very often, and it's such a impactful way to start a fight. Something to know, this Cirquet pick has been one of the top junglers in the league for a bit now, is really gross in the right hands, but a terrible matchup in a Nox. I honestly would never pick Cirquet into this matchup if I can help it, just because of how much gets silenced out. You don't want to use your beads every time you're trying to get to the backline, and you just lose so much of your engage once that silence goes down from the Nox. So Oathh's going to have to play around that for a good portion of this game, especially whenever Genetics is getting active, which he tends to do on this pick. But the Cern is going to be taken away, one of the top ADCs in the league, so probably something the Hounds we're thinking about grabbing if Coast wants to not have this Marty over in duo lane, which does tend to be where the Martikros goes. So it looks like the Kings aren't too convinced that BennyQ, or I guess that Coast is taking it, and maybe that BennyQ is going to take it from mid.
Now as we jump through the second wave of bans, Kernanos and Terra, banned away by the Camelot Kings. A little bit of pressure at least there onto Coast, because it seems the Kings don't believe that this Marty will be going over to Coast, and I think I echo that same sentiment as you. It does not feel like a Coast get in your face and box kind of god. Feels more like almost like a mage style of Hunter. Throw out those abilities from long range, clear out those waves, steal a lot of quick burst damage from the back line. The Eldritch Hounds, by banning away a couple of mages and two that BennyQ has gone to multiple times, probably does, in fact, seal the deal that this Marty might likely be going to Benny with an Oathhh and a Merlin now banned away. So the Camelot Kings, what do they go towards for themselves in the mid lane? A lot of options available for BigManTingz. CaptainTwig also notably hasn't gone for a selection here. So I wonder what we'll maybe see here. I know that Hebo has definitely been one that CaptainTwig has gone to a couple of times. Has had some decent games, has had some stinker games at the same time on the pick. It's been a very fluctuating pick for him.
Yeah, I'm hoping not the Hebo. The Baba Yaga could be something that the Kings go to, but it looks like the Hunbats is the call. Pickup that I've been loving for just about anyone that can find a way to sneak it into a draft, especially with this much beads burn. I mean, you've got Stingy and Torment from Cerberus. You've got the Silence Lockdown combo from Nox. You're going to be getting value out of this Fear No Evil pretty much every single time. So giving CaptainTwig the ability to start a fight, or maybe even come in late to a fight once those beads and those escapes are down, definitely a good look here for the Camelot Kings. We are going to have to wait just a bit longer to see BigManTingz' pick, while the Eldritch Hounds show us exactly what's on Coast's mind. The Rama's still available, a pick that he has liked to go to time and time again and has lots of success on. So it could be something that the Eldritch Hounds look towards. And it's going to be the Geb. We've seen a little bit more Geb. Notably has a fantastic matchup into the Nox. What has it been? I mean, when Nox was a little bit worse, this was the hard counter, right? Oh, you hit a combo, I've used my shield, you have no more damage, you're useless. But Geb fell out of the meta. He doesn't have very good clear. We saw Hurrywin play him to some success. The Blink Cataclysms were pretty nice. But in this case, let's see if the Eldritch Hounds have found a way to shut down this Nox support that, used to be the counter a long time ago.
And not just the Geb, now a Heimdall rounds out the draft for the Eldritch Hounds. If you're looking now, you're going, man, nobody's really playing Heimdall. That doesn't seem like an SPL thing to do. Well, that was the meta in the EUSCC when VaporishCoast was running him up there. That's certainly something that he has had in his pocket for the last, I'd even say probably 2 seasons. He's been slamming this god, given any opportunity in the SCC scene. Camelot Kings round out their draft with a Discordia. And to me, this definitely at least tells me, Charlie, the Camelot Kings want to get a little bit more fighting early. Nox Hachiman, aggressive dual lane Cerberus. One that can definitely get a lot of damage online fast. Once that level 5 active for Hunbats, Fear No Evil anywhere on the map. And now you throw a Discordia buff onto any of those given targets there. Camelot Kings certainly maybe push themselves for a little bit earlier. So for the Eldritch Hounds, Charlie, kind of spell out at least or paint the picture for me here as to kind of how this curve goes for the Eldritch Hounds through the game. Is there a strong early? Is this definitely more slanted late game for the Hounds?
I mean, it's interesting because I think I really like what the Camelot Kings have done here with their team fight. I think the Disco into Serket matchup's pretty nice. You can use that Golden Apple to stop a lot of her aggression. That cripple really does hurt what Serket likes to do. You're likely giving that Disco passive over to Variety in the early game, which if the Cerberus comes through with that Disco passive, he's going to be absolutely chunking. And of course, you get so much CC immunity. I think the one issue is, of course, the Serket finding CaptainTwig in the jungle early. CaptainTwig has been known to take those 1v1s towards the mid camps where Hunbats is not winning that trade. He's getting CC'd out of his overhead smash and just losing that damage trade. So if Oathhh is able to find an early gank on a Twig and just start the snowball, the Hounds are looking real good. But this draft come team fight phase is looking pretty gross. I mean, this is like vintage Camelot Kings. We are controlling the team fight. We are pulling beads. We are just making your 5v5 miserable.
So the Eldritch Hounds maybe starting the ball a little bit earlier, at least in the hands of Oathhh on this Serket. And that's where a lot of the success has come from, this Serket pick in general for players that have been going towards it. Get those first couple of kills, no matter which lane you end up taking it to. And just hope that you don't have to wait until maybe those later and those longer siege defenses as the game kind of goes on there. So if you're Oathhh, you're thinking maybe try and run down CaptainTwig, try and keep him out of the jungle. Do you maybe put any pressure over towards Variety on the Cerberus?
I mean, you certainly could. It's all about if Variety plays over aggressive, which I think sometimes he does. Sometimes he steps up a little bit too far. The Guan, you can force that ultimate relatively easy. So yeah, I'm thinking a lot of pressure towards the right side of the map. If I look towards my dual lane and I see Geb and Heimdall, I'm not going over there for a gank anytime soon, right? They are sitting under tower and playing as safe as possible, but Oathhh has plenty of kill potential other places, right? Again, the 1v1 with CaptainTwig, Cirquette sided out the wazoo, especially over towards that solo lane.
So for the Eldritch Hounds needing to find a win here, it's a big one if they can do so to try and push towards that first seed. The Camelot Kings, they need this win just as much. It all starts here in game number 1. We'll throw it over to our casters, Dave and Mifflin.
That's right, the Camelot Kings, they've got a date with the Highland Ravens tomorrow, and that's ultimately where the number 1 seed of this division will be decided. However, establishing momentum and playstyle and really just getting things back going for this Camelot Kings team, ever so important against a resurgent Eldritch Hounds who, Miff, upon joining the league, we figured they'd have their struggles. We figured it would be a team that would need some time to wind up, as most qualifier teams are. However, I think the Hounds have surpassed some of those expectations.
Took them a little while, though. The freshman struggle of the Hounds lasts all of 3 weeks, and afterwards certainly have found their stride. I imagine they'll be able to at least make it a competitive set here. But the Camelot Kings, for my money, still a clear favorite in this matchup.
Camelot Kings.
Yep.
Making us wait a little bit longer before we get in the game. I didn't see who paused it, but
It's probably the Kings. No,
number-
it was Oathhh. It was Oathhh.
number 1 is my answer, by the way, Miff.
I see. All right.
If you want to
okay.
rejoin that conversation.
I mean,
That is the safest answer because that's the only one that was
yeah, go
like,
ahead.
okay.
What's okay about it?
No, that's all right.
All right.
Camelot Kings, though, look, this is a team in the past have struggled against some of the lower-end teams. Think about last year when they were on their wind-up. They lost to the Valhalla Valkyries at the time and then immediately turned things around and everything was A-okay. Lost to the Gilded Gladiators this year. Unfortunately, have struggled a bit since then. I'm not ready to worry about the Camelot Kings, though, just yet. I mean, I think maybe not as unbeatable as they were during their Worlds run, quite literally, because of some of the matches we've seen here recently, but I still see a team that's cool, calm, calculated, and really has the ability to beat just about anyone.
And I tend to agree with what Trelly had said on the desk about this Camelot Kings draft. It really is just group up, play the team fight, utilize the high CC core of your team, burn through those relics and those CC immunities, and then make use a little bit later on. Whereas the Eldritch Hounds, I feel, just have a much more pick-oriented composition, which does play to their strengths. The Hounds have been an early game team in the past, but the Camelot Kings are very good at slowing things down.
Well, don't you worry, Miff. I know you're chomping at the bit to get into game number 1.
You know me.
I have good news. Right now, we're going to get into game number 1. BennyQ has got himself Marty mid, VaporishCoast on the Heimdall over in the duo lane. Chat leaning 64% to 36% for the Camelot Kings. I think I tend to agree. Maybe 60-40. I'm giving that extra 4% over to the Eldritch Hounds going into game number 1. Yeah, I think so. I think that you give Coast one of his best ADC picks. You give Quig something that can supply good peel.
That we've seen played twice in 2 years.
Yeah, but I'm thinking it's going to stop Twig from being interested in going over to duo at all. You don't think?
No.
Trelly seems to think. And I trust you guys with my entire heart and soul. I don't know anything.
Yeah,
I just echo what you guys say.
Yeah, here's the thing about Hunbots into a Geb matchup. Geb's really good at stopping Hunbot's Fear No Evil, so long as Geb has not been hit by Fear No Evil.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen Fear No Evil? You know how big that is?
No, I turn around and run away every time it jumps out.
Look at this lane, the width of it. Yeah, that's how big it is.
Whoa, could be. Early kill over in mid. We're so used to these 2v2s turning into something, whether it's just damage trades or early kills. Jungle's immediately rotating into mid at level 2. Has made the mid lane a bit more interesting so far here in Season 10. And solo lane builds have been interesting here recently. Ducky with the magical stick to start off.
Ooh.
The axe as well. Double taunt!
Woo.
I'm thinking about solo lane builds, thinking that maybe mid is slowed down a bit. But really, Twig and Ting shoved against their tower. It's giving some early pressure over to Benny and Oathhh.
I mean, Oathhh, that was just frame perfect there. If it takes even a half second longer, would have likely had to have walked into the tower to return his damage, but finds the double taunt. And we'll send the Camelot Kings back to base, BigManTingz. We'll spend a bit of time in the fountain healing that one back up. We'll see if Variety's as lucky.
Variety receives the Oathhh treatment.
He should be okay.
He's going to get body blocked out a bit. Will make his way just on the other side of his Bastion. Ducky and Oathh won't have the damage, but really it's been Oathh setting the pace. And maybe that's what you talked about in the jungle matchup. Maybe that's what the Desk talked about, although I don't know if I trust them anymore. Where
That's awful.
What? I've been led astray. No, Oathh and where the Circuit has gone is really just made some small waves, forced a teleport early out of lane from Variety. Now it's about return ganks. Where can you put pressure on the buffs and maybe find some invades here in a moment?
Yeah, I'm not seeing a clear path of invade for the Camelot Kings, the Eldritch Hounds, though. I think you're right, Oathh should be able to move on map. I feel like Circuit is undervalued in her ability to clear camps. Everybody talks about Bakasura and how quickly he maneuvers the map. Circuit's on a very similar level. The only time Bakasura has the advantage is when that camp is being contested. He's got the ultimate secure in Eat Minion, but as far as just ability to clear out camps, Circuit's right up there with him and should be able to leverage that. Here, Twig. This is dangerous.
Oh, Oathh able to secure the blue buff, but Twig has used his jump out. That means a taunt in from the Circuit. Oathh has used the beads.
Good stun.
Twig gets his blink back, and a stun from Variety helps disengage the remainder of this fight. Ultimately, it was an attempted invade from CaptainTwig. Didn't result in anything except a burnt set of beads from Oathh. Quig hoping to do the same. Or Genetics maybe hoping to do the same. He will successfully invade a purple on the other side. So a small play from the Nox works out.
He has 0% chance Quig ever out-confirms the Nox. The silence just beats out anything Quig can do. You'd need some help from VaporishCoast to prevent that one from happening. But you're not looking at early game. That's not what Geb has ever been played for, even in his heyday, back in Season 2 when it was Geb and Sylvanas every single game. It's much more so mid to late game slanted, especially with that early Bracer pickup. If it's Blink in first slot, Geb can have a similar conversation to Hunbots where it's Blink ultimate and pray that they die immediately afterward. Quig going to struggle a little bit to find that opportunity. Instead, we'll have to walk directly in towards the Camelot Kings. And as for counter-engage potential, the Camelot Kings have got it in spades. If it's a telegraphed initiation from the Eldritch Hounds, Stygian Torment can stop you. Fear No Evil can stop you. Genetics can stop you with over half of his kit. So,
Yep.
Going to be very difficult for Quig, I think, to get aggressive. Much easier for him to play that counter-initiator role, but the initiation of the Camelot Kings is multifaceted, and he can only stop so much.
I also love BigManTingz on this Discordia. I think this is a pick that you've seen a couple of mid laners reach for at times. It's not been top of the meta for a little while, but it's always been something in BigManTingz' back pocket. Tends to look really good and does just a little bit of everything that you'd hope for out of your mid laner. For now, has been able to play safe despite early pressure from Oathh over in mid lane. You're going to see the second, third rotation of buffs here shortly. One of them stolen away by Genetics in an attempted steal from CaptainTwig just a few moments ago. Wonder if there's a bit of a timer on this game. That said, Myth, you talked about some of what the junglers might be looking to do early in this game. You've got a Marty.
Ooh.
That'll scale up later. VaporishCoast, thanks to a missed ability from Genetics, will be okay. But double ADC comms, you got Geb, who's one of the most Guardians to ever Guardian. Wondering if the Eldritch Hounds feel like if they can take a breather, they'll be sitting pretty here in the next 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's hard to say. You've got a double Hunter composition from the Eldritch Hounds. You'd think scales very well. Ducky on the Guan, phenomenal in the late game. Oathh going for the Transcendence and likely will pick up some more crit and build, means that he scales, but teamfight presence and composition from the Camelot Kings could just put a hard stopper on this one. Even if each of your individual pieces is good in the late game, I feel like the Camelot Kings, from an even state, will win out on any given 5v5. So I'd like to see the Eldritch Hounds do something in the early game. That's where you really lean on the pick potential of a Circuit. Can you isolate Jarcorrr? Can you force out an ultimate from Genetics or make CaptainTwig react defensively with Fear No Evil? If yes, go to Gold Fury, build your lead, rinse, repeat, play through Pyro, and the Eldritch Hounds could find themselves in a position in that mid to late game where they've got an advantage. And they're going to need it, I think. The Camelot Kings, on the other hand, might individually scale less into the late game, but compositionally just look so good that I think they're happy to wait it out throughout early.
Well, both compositions have a little stacking to do. 3 Transcendences, 2 for the Hounds, as you talked about, Kings. You get 1 for CaptainTwig, as well as Thieves, Devourer's Gauntlet for both ADCs, Prophetic for Genetics. That's a bit more active stacking than just sitting back and farming things up. It's kind of apt that we saw variety on the Cerberus in a couple of those early highlight plays when the desk was discussing both of these two teams. Sort of that slightly off meta style of pick that variety still makes work from time to time. And Cerberus, especially in a healing style setting, Myth, maybe receives a little extra value.
Should do. Anti-heal and kit. You're able to seal away some of that healing for yourself, so it makes variety very tanky in that back line. If Benny decides to go down that Soul Eater tree, we'll have mitigated efficacy there, thanks to the Cerberus on the Camelot Kings. So double stack, perhaps not as much an option as it once was. CaptainTwig, very nearly able to chase out there. And he got a bit luckier on the monkey toss. Genetics needs some luck himself and finds it. A clean disengage from the Camelot Kings. The Eldritch Hounds try their best to get aggressive. That's Cataclysm off Quig. Ducky lost his cavalry charge on the opposite side. Keep your eyes on Twig. Fear no evil could be the difference maker.
BennyQ will not have to use the ultimate or the beads, and CaptainTwig will keep the ultimate just around the corner. Just based on how these two teams are built, Myth. Maybe another 5-10 minutes of hanging out and farming before we're thinking about this Gold Fury, unless somebody woefully overextends.
We got to put warrior sets at the end of the day, because I'm just so used to that pace now.
Well, Coast, no stranger to looking for solo kills, might get himself a 1v2, though Yark hops on the horse, rides away. VaporishCoast trades some autos back in. Misses a couple of the pivotal ones, and Yark just stays alive. Though there was a dive consideration from the Eldritch Hounds. Now variety, speaking of dive, might be getting dove over in the solo lane. Does not have his ultimate, and that'll be first blood on a tower dive from the Eldritch Hounds. And it happens on the right side of the map, and perfectly calculated damage.
I couldn't tell you what Variety's thinking there. That's just gotta be tilt, right? Variety knows that his blue buff is being invaded, so he just takes an auto attack trade up against Oathhh, who wins that trade every single time, had it just been auto attacks. Takes so much damage from that poke that he's put in kill threshold. Strange play there from Variety. It had to have been frustration. Why are they on my blue buff? Where's my team? What do I do? You're kind of rolling your eyes and you get caught out. But certainly avoidable had he taken 5 steps to the south into his own tower.
Yep. Well, look, this happens to Variety from time to time. Receive an early gank, but generally really good at not falling way too far behind. You know, a level or two maybe, but tends to be able to stabilize and should, on the Cerberus, be okay. Upgraded the teleport. Cooldown slightly lower. The Eldritch Hounds won't be able to roll that into an immediate Gold Fury pull, however. You got BennyQ double stacking, as we've often seen from the Marty over in mid, so you're still waiting a little bit more time before some of that power spikes up. Ultimate used by Variety again. And no beads. I mean, again, small window to hit, but should Oathhh immediately like those odds, can just head right back over to right on a forced ultimate out of Ducky, who Myth, I think, has been playing some really good solo lane recently. Ducky, a lot of conversation around him and the teams he's been on and how he's played and exactly where he's going to fit in the league. I think a large reason this Hounds team made their way into the SPL.
This is the best year Ducky has had in his competitive career. As far as winning is concerned, individual KD, it has just been the best performance from him so far. And with this rookie team on the Eldritch Hounds, I don't know that either squad, Dave, can do a whole lot on map right now. You're still waiting on Transcendence for a few of these players to finish stacking up. 2 for Oathhh, 10 for CaptainTwig on the other side. Neither team has really got the best objective secure, or any objective secure for that matter. Both have got decent burn. Oathhh eats the Fear No Evil, loses the beads, and just walks himself away. A defensive usage of the ultimate just to secure a blue buff there. Ducky unsuccessful in taking it away. Small win for the Camelot Kings in defending their own buffs, but it removes their ability to play proactively on map. Now CaptainTwig gets to spin his thumbs in the jungle for the next minute while we wait on that ultimate.
Well, the argument is maybe that he was going to be doing that anyway. And so the ultimate use to defend the blue buff maybe makes the most sense. However, probably wishes he had it in a moment like this. He'll walk into 3 members of the Eldritch Hounds that have pulled the Pyromancer. Strife drops. So does an apple, and it actually bounces back to Quig. Pyro is low. Eldritch Hounds uninterested in sticking around and finishing off the objective. Ducky rotates from solo, but Quig somewhat low here. Have to go back and reset on this Geb. So it's the Hounds asking the questions. It was the Kings with the quick answer.
Yeah, the double strife sealed the fate of that Pyromancer, and the fate is that it's just going to live. When you're taking that much damage on the Eldritch Hounds that quickly from BigManTingz, there's no way you want to stick around in the fight. Perhaps had there been a bit more zone, or if Ducky's a bit faster to the rotation, could have kept them out, but instead, it's the Camelot Kings who simply walk up to Pyro and heat check the Eldritch Hounds, and they were not prepared.
Well, I see BennyQ's ult is down, and I see Tingz very low and heading back to base, and largely tells you what happened. Great Cataclysm from Quig. Slows down Yark on his way into the fight. BennyQ, the recipient of a little counter-aggression after BigManTingz was sent packing. Don't mind it, but that's left VaporishCoast free and clear to farm things up on left. We know what Heimdall does as the game goes on.
He hits hard.
Hits hard. Devour's Gauntlet, Kin Size, both completed. Transcendence is fully stacked. The Eldritch Hounds hitting a decent little point here in the 12, 13 minute mark. And Camelot Kings maybe not that far behind here, Miff, though Yark has gone Xe early. BigManTingz into the Charon's coin. Hope to get some of those stacks built up.
So Yark will have advantage on actual objective DPS, Executioner, how it affects your team's penetration, and heavily banner attack speed stim. Means that you really could burn through a Gold Fury or a Pyromancer given the option. Whereas VaporishCoast is itemized a little bit more so towards actual PvP. Kin Size, so good at shredding the front line. Haven't had too many opportunities for that PvP just yet, though, and when it has come up, VaporishCoast has not been hitting those tanks. So it might be a little while until he's able to leverage that item. Maybe around the time Jarcorrr finishes up his own Kin Size, and VaporishCoast will be able to match him with Executioner next slot. Could be a moot point, could not be, depending on the objective and when it's pooled. But neither side confident in their ability. It's the Eldritch Hounds with the lead, so if either one's got the onus, it would be the Hounds. But it's that inability to secure from both teams, again, that I think is really slowing down the pace. It's got to be a pick first from either team if they want to look at an objective.
Yeah, we're far off from FG and Phoenix fighting, but Variety concerned about surviving, maybe beneath his tier 1s. Stygian Torment gets the beads off of Oathhh, and a dive is going to happen yet again here. Ducky will complete the tower dive. A Fear No Evil only hits Oathhh as CaptainTwig goes up and over the wall and takes the monkey toss
juke
towards Ducky. But Ducky backs away from CaptainTwig, and it's disaster from the Kings over on right as all the damage has been flipped. And it's Oathhh with 2 and another couple assists for Ducky.
So Twig throws the ultimate over wall to try and peel out for Variety. That makes sense to me. He doesn't want to waste time leaping or blinking. Instead, really wants to make sure that Soul Laner survives. But had he just leapt over, likely would have gotten a double kill by keeping them both in the tower line himself. Would have been a great trade out. Instead, leaps in after he uses the Fear No Evil and loses his life for nothing. The Eldritch Hounds take Pyromancer on the tail end. We'll put that Runic Bomb in the pocket of Ducky. Should be able to make quick work of that tier 1 tower on right, should he be left alone up against Variety, who is now looking at a pretty hefty deficit in the soul lane. The Eldritch Hounds, I mean, they've been given a couple of unforced errors here, the Camelot Kings, slipping on map.
Which, again, unfortunately, has become a bit more normal for the Camelot Kings. Now,
unheard of in Season 9.
Right, no, never happened. Even if it did, it was only moments like this. This game far from out of control by King standards. This is a team that can fight very well from behind. They realize that teams might overextend when they've got a bit of a lead. And the Kings generally really smart at calling out overextensions and being in the right spot at the right time. Now the Eldritch Hounds, are they going to overextend? Are they going to do too much? That ends up being the question. Well, you've got a lot of potential with Oathhh right now at 2-0. Finishes up Serrated Edge, so good itemization building up there for the Circuit, who's really ran the pace of the jungle so far. And it's the right side of the map, Miff, that's been affected. It's jungle and solo lane for the Eldritch Hounds. Jungle you love. Solo, you got to find a way to get involved here when you're only 15, 16 or so minutes into the game. Could be a Fury pull, but I think maybe some of the earlier points you were talking about. Secure and burn and that conversation and that dynamic, still a lot to be discussed.
I think now, with the lead that the Eldritch Hounds have, it would be a misplay to allow Pyromancer to respawn before this Gold Fury gets pulled. You've got burn potential. Your tanks are pretty tanky already. Spirit Robe in second slot for Quig means that even should the Camelot Kings initiate on him, it'd likely be either Genetics, CaptainTwig, or Variety doing so. They'll all proc that Spirit Robe immediately, and he's going to be nearly unkillable. the burn potential between Benny and VaporishCoast is ridiculous. And Benny has even got a bit of crit in build now, so even further expedites how quickly this Gold Fury would go down. And I say the Gold Fury should die before Pyromancer respawns, just so that it removes the possibility of the Camelot Kings going for the other objective.
Yep.
If the Eldritch Hounds group up on Pyro on respawn, Kings grab gold, cuts the lead. The opposite is also very possible. Pick on genetics could open the door.
Wonder if the Hounds agreeing with you here, Myth. If we can fight once, difficult to kill off a Nox. Oathhh actually jumps over the wall. Genetics loses half of his HP. Ducky is teleported to left. Variety does not have teleport, so this is going to be a 5 versus 4 if there's even to be a fight, and there's not. Myth, do you have a direct line to the Hounds headsets? Are you shot calling for them right now?
I've played Smite for 10 years, and 6 of those competitively. You get used to seeing a Gold Fury die when there's a lead.
What, are you flexing on me now, Myth?
I guess so.
You must be. You got something figured out, and the Hounds do as well. They'll pick up Gold Fury. The Pyromancer just a couple minutes away. A tier 1 tower over on left, and now what could be a kill onto Yark. Who will gallop away. A couple ultimates used. Genetics now steps forward. This is an awkward moment for the dual lane. I'm not sure the Hounds realized it's only the dual lane of the Kings. Otherwise, both might have had an opportunity to step forward there. The Genetics and Yark with all their actives ready would have been tough. But a great last 2 or 3 minutes for the Eldritch Hounds, who get Gold Fury, a tower and some pressure, and now nearly 5,000 gold of a lead.
Yeah, they're controlling the pace almost entirely here. Variety.
Unlucky.
Able to take away the blue buff. I mean, that's a costly blue buff as well. Ducky using his own ultimate, trying to defend it. But with Pyromancer, still a little ways off respawn. 15 seconds on that one. Ducky will have time to get that cooldown back and available. Same thing I had said. Yeah, I want to see the Eldritch Hounds on top of these objectives. The lead is now so massive that they are favored in every single team fight, which means that they should be forcing team fights as often as possible. Group on Pyro, force out the engagement. You can elongate it a bit, maybe burn through Twig or Variety's ultimate, and then from there, look for the full engage. And a long fight will favor the Eldritch Hounds, just by nature of having a Guan Yu on their team.
Wow. Oh, Eldritch Hounds not immediately on top of the Pyromancer. Instead, it's the Camelot Kings. This is when we talk about the Kings. And their ability to shot call and PvE, and they are on top of it. Now, maybe Coast being on left indicates that Eldritch Hounds were largely uninterested in fighting over that Pyromancer anyway, because the tier 2 tower is going to lose about half of its HP. Coast would love to stick around, but he's got 3 members of the Kings closing in.
Couldn't do it.
Will survive, and it was probably smart. Literally one more auto. They have kept him in that fight just a bit too long. Variety has Stygian Torment. And has Leap. Ducky, Cavalry Charge. Certainly not going to get close enough, but Oathhh will dash forward as well. Now a Stygian Torment. Variety throws everything at the 2 members of the Hounds, but a killing spree for Oathhh, and all of it built up over on the right side.
Variety can't catch a break. I'm not even going to leave that one at Variety's feet. Benny in some trouble. Twig ults nothing.
No.
That is, it's a tough day in the Camelot Kings camp. They should still knock down Benny.
Yep.
And they do in the 3v1, but at the cost of the tier 2 on the left-hand side.
And the tier 1 on right.
And tier 1 on right, potentially a tier 2 on right. The issue there, and why I'm not going to blame Variety, is that he survived for entirely too long. There needs to be something from the Camelot Kings in-map to respond. Either group up on left and push while you know there are 2 members of the Hounds on right, or rotate and help Variety, and neither happens. Eventually the Camelot Kings have their hands forced, and they make that play in mid. But even then, iffy in execution.
Sure is, and this now pace that the Eldritch Hounds have started to build up, slightly threatening for the Camelot Kings. Talk about an Oni Fury in the next 45 or so seconds. You maybe got one more chance to go back and reset. You're going to be fighting into a killing spree for Oathhh. Really love a little bit more gold. That 1,500 or so should be able to get a tier 3 finished up, depending on what itemization Oathhh is looking for. Deathbringer might make some sense, as the in-kit crit for Circat is maybe up to the viability just a little bit. That's likely where we'll see the next big fight. We've seen, a small skirmish here or there, Myth, but I don't think we've seen the full 5v5 just yet. Variety just used teleport. He heads back towards right. Ducky has teleport. Could be a similar dynamic to what we just saw, but you can tell the decision-making for this Cerberus a bit difficult, hovering between right and mid.
The concern now is that the Eldritch Hounds, still in a commanding lead, would love to force the engagement. but now you have to be concerned of the return of Fire Giant. If you group up on Oni Fury, Fire Giant viable for the Camelot Kings. So you need vision on both sides of the map. I think the primary source of the pace of game slowing down here for the Eldritch Hounds is VaporishCoast's unwillingness to rotate out of lane. He hasn't left duo just yet. The furthest he's gone has been towards that Fury. Level 20, nearly 6 slotted. It's time for him to get involved in the team fight with the rest of his team. Massive source of damage. Would shred through anybody on the Camelot Kings. Just got to get him out of that lane first.
Well, went back 1,500 gold, upgrades the start item. That's a now big advantage he's got over Jarcorrr, who does not have quite as much gold in hand. About halfway to that starter item.
Happens quick.
Genetics.
He's dead.
Goodness, he's caught out here, and he's landing into a world of hurt, and it's VaporishCoast with his first of the game. The Kings immediately step back. Just quick initiation from Oathhh and Coast. And all of it onto Genetics. Now maybe a fight breaking out in mid. Fear No Evil sent through from CaptainTwig. Quig has been burnt through just a bit. BigManTingz has a detonate. But there's cleave damage out of the Eldritch Hounds.
Oh.
Oathhh goes tower
He
diving.
crits.
He'll get the kill, but it's traded out with a double kill for BMT. Far from clean for the Eldritch Hounds in a 2-for-2 fight.
Yeah, Benny caught out on the rotation towards gold. Means that the Fury remains alive, and the Eldritch Hounds can't do anything. It was a free pick onto Genetics that starts this fight, but Benny, on his own, gives the Camelot Kings an avenue back into the game. Able to force out his ultimate defensively. Quig forced to step forward, create some space, dies immediately afterward. Great paralyzing spit placement from Variety, puts him into that kill threshold of the second tick of Golden Apple, and BigManTingz, credit for the kill there. And this was the concern. Gold Free allowed to survive until Pyromancer is back up, fight extended a bit, and the Camelot Kings find as much as possible as they can on map. What should have been a clear and concise win for the Eldritch Hounds becomes a bit murky as the Camelot Kings are allowed to do at least a little bit. BigManTingz, the silver lining now at 3-0 in this Discordia. Needs to be the shutdown target of the Eldritch Hounds. Oathhh as well gets lucky in that engagement too. I mean, had he not crit, it would not have secured the kill. Fortunately for him, Deathbringer finished up, and Circuit's in-kit crit just enough. Ticks him over the edge. Camelot Kings now, but difficult question ahead of them. Are you ready to defend this fire?
This is massive. This is one of those moments where either the game delays for another 5 minutes if the Kings steal it, or the Eldritch Hounds, it would have pressed down on the gas a bit further. The Fire Giant simply melting. CaptainTwig steps too far forward, and BennyQ reminds him of it. Another kill should be dropping here shortly when Variety crashes down to earth. Another one for Coast. Fire Giant's low, but it's not been finished off, not just yet. But the Eldritch Hounds complete the big one. And 3 members of the Camelot Kings left running. Oathhh misses the taunt through, but still a chance for Ducky and the rest of the Hounds to step forward.
3-man core, the Camelot Kings fully on retreat. The Eldritch Hounds 5 strong, but only 4 of which healthy.
Ducky's
Quig
tanking.
slowly resustaining with the help of that Guan Yu. You got 20 seconds to play with here. Can you knock down the bird?
Looks like the Eldritch Hounds want to. Both carries and support left on the map. Frenzy equals easy. That feels kind of bad. You look at the team fight summary, Miff. 300 or so more damage done by the Camelot Kings, but goose egg in the kill department. About 2,000 gold given over to the Hounds.
Yeah, the Eldritch Hounds just securing their kills. You could see the Eldritch Hounds playing very kill hungry, by the way. I feel like that Fire Giant likely could have been knocked down a bit quicker there instead. It's a chase out as BennyQ forced to retreat back towards his team. Probably best secure on map for his squad, so need him there with Genetics generating steal threat on map. Now it's the Camelot Kings, who are on death's door for game 1. One more team fight for the Eldritch Hounds, and that's GG. What's your win con? Where is it? How do you get things rolling? We need to see CaptainTwig and Variety playing together. Those 2 ultimates so integral for setting each other up. And it doesn't matter what your PEMDAS is. Your order of operations simply does not matter. So long as beads are burnt and someone's doing something about it.
No, the newcomer against one of the veterans forces the ultimate, uses the beads, and grabs a solo. Look, we figure that's the way that matchup's going to go, right? But if you're Twig, you're hoping to avoid that. Unable to do so. Oathhh with his 5th of the game. And now with 40 seconds for the Kings without one of their massive team fight tools, maybe one of their massive defensive options as well. If you're the Hounds, you're maybe hoping to see him get aggressive.
Time to run it down, Eldritch Hounds. 30 seconds to play with, and all the play on field. The Camelot Kings are weak.
Oathhh might go up and over. Ducky has found the backline. That sent BigManTingz on the S key. Apple bouncing around. Pumpkin, maybe a bit more apt. Left side, Phoenix quickly burnt. Over towards mid lane go the Eldritch Hounds, so you'd think BennyQ will send some poke up and over the wall. That's smart. That's smart. Clean play from the Eldritch Hounds. They've realized that they've got this small momentary advantage, and they'll get the biggest bird of the game.
And now, having broken 2 of the birds, only have 1 clear lane to start pushing through. Fire Giant power play won't last a whole lot longer, but gold lead's so massive, I think you could probably still siege this tier 2. Instead, they'll go ahead and split the neutral objectives. Primal Fury 2-man stack, Benny and Ducky working through this one. Pyromancy on the other side. Oathhh and Quig putting in their efforts there. And the Camelot Kings make the wise decision of not stepping up anywhere on map. I'm not even sure they could have taken the 5v3 on the left-hand side. Opportunities for the Camelot Kings. No Magi's on Oathhh means that he's got no true CC immunity for the next 60 seconds. CaptainTwig hasn't looked a whole lot of impactful on this on bots, but could be it. Could just catch him in the jungle.
Yeah, maybe.
Shove him to a wall. I mean, he got like 3 seconds. He can't fight back.
That's right. Assuming none of the rest of the Eldritch Hounds are anywhere around. Player damage tells you, I think, a decent story here, Myth. BigManTingz on this Discordia has just been swinging. And then all 4 members.
He's trying real hard to get something going.
4 members of the Hounds grouped up. And then 14,000 damage behind their mid laner is Jarcorrr with 11k. Fire Giant's going to be up in 10 seconds here. The Eldritch Hounds trying to maximize the downtime. Open up 1 more tower. Could open up for a mid lane Phoenix siege in just a little bit of time. And probably smart from the Kings, realizing they're not going to favor themselves in many fights right now. They're not going to step too far out of their base. I expect at some point here the Eldritch Hounds to double back for this FG. Keep your eyes on Jarcorrr, though. He's got a push going over on the left side, keeping those fire minions at bay.
Teleport will be up by the time he gets to the Phoenix. Or maybe Oathhh will deal with him before he's got the time for it either.
Runic Bomb.
That's it. Jarcorrr, he's a veteran. Yep. He knows better. Won't step up to that Phoenix. Knows someone's hovering nearby. Fire Giant.
A minute away from Enhanced.
That's easy.
Yep. Well, this is smart from the Kings. They think, all right, not Enhanced Fire Giant. We can deal with the regular FG going down.
We're sipping so much copium now, Dave. Is it smart for the Camelot Kings, or were their hands forced? Can they contest Fire Giant? I'd answer no. I don't even think they're contesting this here.
They have free will. They could have stepped up to the FG.
No, that was predestined by the last 30 minutes.
They had the ability to W key out of base and step up to the Fire Giant should they want it. VaporishCoast wants 1 last auto attack. Ducky may have just soloed Twig back behind the entire team fight, but now Ducky is low. 1 sent flying. It looks like Variety, who has Stygian Torment, but he's going to die before he can do it. My goodness, it's been a bad game for this Cerberus. 0-5, half of the kills the Eldritch Hounds have. On to Variety. I'm just going to refresh the cooldown on the right side Phoenix before going back and resetting, but Ducky teleporting in gives you the eyes for aggression.
I don't know how Variety dies before ultimate goes off. CaptainTwig, that whole exchange, no fear, no evil. There has to be a opportunity.
Oh, Twig was completely zoned by Ducky. Now has the fear, no evil to try to trade with VaporishCoast, but can't do it. BennyQ sends his ultimate flying. Finally something for the Camelot Kings, and it's just a kill on a Ducky by Genetics. But the Eldritch Hounds want to keep their hot streak going. They'll step into the Titan room, but health bar is just a bit too low and respawn's just a bit too close. The Camelot Kings will be able to defend and keep this game alive.
They keep it alive, but only barely. It's on life support. They've got the iron lung on this match right now.
No.
Because they are barely hanging on by a thread. Eldritch Hounds keep up their pressure. They'd love to knock down this left side Phoenix, but before being forced to disengage. Oathh's got the flank.
Oathhh has the flank. The relic situation is abysmal for the Camelot Kings. Only Variety has actives. Oathhh has just walked into the Titan room and allowed the minions to deal a bit of damage to the Titan. Looks like for now, that is it. Really, Jarcorrr and Tingz, thankful for it. You got 2 minutes remaining on both of their relics. Though Coast's still waiting on his as well. Eldritch Hounds will allow a momentary reprieve for the Kings.
There is so much AoE CC on the Camelot Kings that I think they can just sit in their Titan room and keep the Eldritch Hounds out. The second the Eldritch Hounds make a decision of time to hard engage, let's try and burn the Titan, let's try and make it happen, Stygian Torment. Fear no evil. Massive silence field from Genetics. There's so much disruption on this Camelot Kings draft that unless they're getting picked beforehand, they should be able to keep the base alive.
Oathhh, simply by existing, gets a Fear no evil out of CaptainTwig.
Can you blame him? Considering the last 3 times Twig is lined up against Oathhh?
And Oathhh had beads, I think. I don't know if they just came back up, but Oathhh could have turned that around, but we'll just take the ultimate and head back, realize there's nothing really to fight over. This team's going to get the Fury, the Pyro, all of it. You got 2 Runic Bombs, you got 3 Phoenixes down. Myth, is it predestined that they're going to get an EFG, walk into the Titan room, drop 2 Runic Bombs, and end the game?
Well, I guess we could have a philosophical conversation. If it's 100% odds, is that predestined?
It depends if you believe that it was 100% odds the moment we loaded into this game.
Considering what I've seen this game, very well could have been the case.
And then, you know, we can go further. How old are you?
25.
Do you feel like 25 years ago?
I emerge on this earth.
Destined to cast this exact moment?
This exact moment on the 20th, a Saturday, I knew in my heart of hearts.
Yep.
That my bloodline led up to this moment.
There was a small invisible string tying you to this game,
The
and
thread
all
of
throughout
fate.
your life, it was just reeling you into this moment. You know, you might have intertwined one another once or twice, but you've arrived all the same to an enhanced fire giant and a 15,000 gold lead for the Eldritch Hounds. We're talking about not only item builds, but 3K pots. VaporishCoast got one ready to roll.
They got the levels, though. This is even in levels.
That's right.
Only hit
XP
20
is
once.
equalized. That's right. Right side Phoenix will be back up, but I'm thinking 1 auto from BennyQ just about gets that done. This is maybe your last opportunity. Genetics aggressive, so is CaptainTwig on the Fear no evil. Less than nothing is found. The pumpkin will search for a target and it won't find one. Genetics will lose his life at the end of this game. Variety leaps away, hoping to avoid his 6th. Somebody's got to get
alive?
it. BennyQ's going to. Eldritch Hounds, my goodness, they have taken the game to the Camelot Kings in game 1, and they've got 2 Runic Bombs and a whole heap of damage ready for this Titan, and they'll take a 1-0 lead in this set.
A convincing win at that. I mean, there was not a single point this game where I thought, okay, Camelot Kings, I get it. You forced this objective. You played here. You got proactive here. No ganks from Twig. Nothing. No active attempts to defend their own buffs. Nothing on map. The Eldritch Hounds, everything. And even then, they take a slow pace to it. They were leisurely rolling over the Camelot Kings.
A couple things to note here. I don't want to look too long term. We still got a set to play, but say the Kings lose this set and lose tomorrow against the Ravens, and the Hounds are able to win their set.
Would that be 4th seed Kings?
There's a world where the Kings would be 3rd seed, I think.
Okay.
But we're arguing about their potential 1st seed status going into the phase. A world where the Kings somehow end 3rd if they're not able to clean up any of their last couple wins. And what that would mean for their last 2 or 3 weeks of play, if they lose 2 games this weekend, a couple sets last weekend, this Kings team just isn't playing with that same fire. And the Hounds team have got something figured out. Kings, though, look, there's too much talent, veteranship on this team to go quietly in sets like this. And imagine there's some adjustments being made and preparations being made for game 2. Unless the Eldritch Hounds out-adjust them, outmaneuver them, predestined maybe for a win here. Find out what happens in game 2 right after this.
Bit wordy, but we got there.
Every superpower that is yours will be mine. I'll be that it girl, a pouting mouth, crossing the line. You seem like you're the ruler on TikTok when you rock. How can you seem like you're a Wimbledon winner? I got to say I'm a sinner. I wanna sing the melodies, wear my heart on my sleeve. sinner. I do the same, I'm a sinner. I do the same, I'm a sinner. I wanna live your life. I know it's been a while, haven't talked since July. You've been on my mind, don't hang up. I know it's been some time since I called you mine. You've been on my mind, don't hang up. Maybe I'm a little bit jealous, haven't told my friends we ended it. Yeah, I know that it's wrong. Maybe it's a little bit selfish calling you up when I'm wasted, when I know that you moved on. Is she in your arms right now? Tell me, is she gonna stay the night? Tell me, is she in your arms right now? Is she in your arms tonight? Like I used to be. Talk things through, tell me what to do. Don't give up after all that we've been through. I give my all to you, just tell me what to do. Don't give up on me, yeah. Maybe I'm a little bit jealous, haven't told my friends we ended it. Yeah, I know that it's wrong. Maybe it's a little bit selfish calling you up when I'm wasted, when I know that you moved on. Is she in your arms right now? Tell me, is she gonna stay the night? Tell me, is she in your arms right now? Is she in your arms tonight? Like I used to be.
Hello, welcome back to the SPL for our second set. Game number 1 goes over to the Eldritch Hounds, and maybe a pretty easy fashion for them. Felt like it was a pretty much a cakewalk here for the Eldritch Hounds throughout the later stages of that game, and maybe they were sipping on a little bit of that Godslayer energy that really helped them go through. Thanks to our friends over at Advanced GG, you too can pick up your Godslayer bundle. We got not just the shaker, but also the flavor available over at advanced.gg, and if you want to get it for an extra little bit of a discount, use code SMITE. That's right, SMITE, SMITE. and you can get yourself 10% off your purchase of not just the Godslayer Energy Bundle, but also anything else that you pick up. So thank you so much, AdvancedGG, for joining us in Season 10 of the SMITE Pro League. And Trelly, game number 1, I mean, this started off maybe deceptively close to kind of kick things off for 6 to 8 minutes, not a whole lot going on map. And then you look over at the right side of the map, and it's CaptainTwig and Variety constantly being dove, constantly losing out on these fights up against Oathhh and Ducky, and then that eventually snowballs into some of the team fights over on the left-hand side of the map where the Camelot Kings just can't make impactful plays, and the Eldritch Hounds are able to run away with game number 1.
Yep. I mean, that Serket pick just really does flourish in the 1v1. You're able to find an early pick on a Variety. Oathhh gets off to a fantastic start. Of course, he's going to be able to win trades up against CaptainTwig as well. The Hunbats wants to sit back, wants to farm, and Oathhh, once he gets a couple kills, is just going to run the map, and that's sort of what the Eldritch Hounds were going for. They wanted that early pressure. They wanted to be able to just find, you know, as much levels as they could, and it just seemed like once Oathhh was able to get online, he showed up to just about every team fight, was able to find a nice little solo kill, and the Camelot Kings were never really able to get their bearings. Their tanks didn't seem tanky, and with a physical composition like this, with BennyQ on the Marti Cross, you have so much shred. It just really didn't matter. Objectives, gods, pretty much everything melted in the face of the Eldritch Hounds.
I mean, we were pushing near 20 minutes in the game. It was all kills for Eldritch Hounds, and as you mentioned, the one pick onto BennyQ in mid. Shortly after that last little pick on a Variety, but then from that point on, I mean, team fights, objective play, all of this going the way of the Eldritch Hounds. Just felt like the Kings could never really make use of the AoE CC that they had. Fear No Evil was always being beadsed out or used defensively, specifically up against Oathhh more often than not for CaptainTwig, just trying to use it for peel. Oathhh would beads every single time immediately afterward, and now you're missing out on there. And then Variety would go in for an ultimate, and he wouldn't pick up anybody. They'd either pop their beads or they would just take the ultimate, stand right in front of him and say, okay, cool, thanks for bringing us right back to you in order to deal that final bit of damage. The Eldritch Hounds went out in game number 1. Nearly 36,000 player damage for BennyQ on this Marty here in game number 1. Top of the lobby, almost pretty heavily there. BigManTingz short behind him, 3-0-1 on the Discordia. Still got to sing the praise of the consistency of BMT on this squad, but just felt like the Camelot Kings could never really rally around each other. The only real group up that we saw in the early game was that one Gold Fury fight about 20-so minutes in.
Yep, unfortunate for Tings. A lot of damage, goes undying on the disco, but wasn't able to translate into too much. The tanks could not frontline for a composition like this here for the Eldritch Hounds. And I was a big fan of the Cerberus, right? That was a pick that I think that Variety looks real solid on. It just was not able to live the ganks. If you're going to give away the Guan Yu and the Serket, that's just so much pressure you can put onto something like the Cerberus that really only has one way to get away, that leap, the CC immunity. They just don't care about it. They've got knockup immunity built into the kit. They're not going to be worried about a Stygian Torment. So I'm thinking number 1, biggest change up for the Camelot Kings. Got to get CaptainTwig on pressure. He can't be on someone that's going to sit by till level 20 because level 20 might not come.
And maybe take that Serket out of Oath's hands after a performance like that one as well. We'll see if those change-ups and more get made. The P's and B's for game number 2. Now Camelot Kings in a first pick position. But Trelly, it's not like the Eldritch Hounds snap locked the Serket for themselves. Remember, they picked up Marty in that very first pick slot, and then it wasn't until second and third pick that the Guan Yu and Serket got picked immediately after. So maybe the Camelot Kings, if they don't want the Serket themselves, which they don't, they'll ban that away from the Eldritch Hounds. So that's adaptation number 1, taking a pressure pick away from Oathhh. Now number 2 is to get one of those picks for CaptainTwig so he can try and get the ball rolling a little bit earlier for the Camelot Kings. Eldritch Hounds with their first ban, they'll take away Horus. And the Camelot Kings continue to take away this Aphrodite. I'm not gonna try and sit here and say that, you know, Quig can't play the Aphrodite. There's nobody in the league who can play the Aphrodite except for ABC players, but
that's what I'm saying.
So far, only 3 players out of all of the supports in the league have found wins on this Aphrodite. That being Genetics, Jake, and Hurrywin. But Camelot King's not going to take any risks, and they ban that one away.
Yep, in this case, the Hounds are not going to give over the Marty as well. I think that's going to be a smart call, especially with how much damage BennyQ was able to do on it. You know, BigManTingz, he also likes to go to that pick, so not going to be an option here for the Camelot Kings, which confuses me a bit. I'm curious what their first pick strategy is here, because you can usually tell what they're going for by the way of their bans. When the Nox is, or when the Hell is taken away, the Camelot Kings like to try and grab that Nox, but in this case it didn't work too well. The Geb was a nice answer there from Quig. So they are going to take away the Afro and the Serket, which was just a big problem in game number 1. The question now becomes, are you still valuing that Nox despite the lack there of pressure that the Camelot Kings had in Game 1? Or are you just trying to grab, I guess they answered for me. The Hercules was banned away, and they get to grab the Vamana. This is a pick that Twig likes to go to. Variety, probably not going to take it, but in this case, I think it's a big switch up from what CaptainTwig was doing in game number 1, which is just getting out pressure. That's what Hunbats does.
So Vamana first pick after being banned away in game number 1. So far, CaptainTwig, the only one on his team to have taken this pick so far, hasn't given it over to Variety. 6 games that CaptainTwig has played it, 5 of those have been wins. We'll see if he can make that win number 6 for himself. Eldritch Hounds, though, and this was maybe the question I was going to pose to you, had this Vamana not made it through, was the Nox is something that Genex likes to go to. The Yemoja is something that he likes to play as well. You leave both of those open. You maybe run the risk of giving one of those away. In this case, Camelot Kings, they now lose out on both Hachi and Yemoja over to the Eldritch Hounds.
Yeah, the Vamana getting through has baffled me. That is not something that I expected.
Yeah, I thought that would have been gone for sure.
Yeah, once you see the Vamana, it's a no-brainer. I don't know if the Camelot Kings were expecting that. They are able to grab it, and that's a pick that, as you show with the stats, Twig has looked very successful on. In this case, the Terra, a little bit more value than the Nox. They are going to let that one go by the wayside because it didn't have the performance they were looking for. Follow that up with a Merlin. Very strong top 3 there for the Camelot Kings. But, of course, they've got the healing, they've got the sustain, and now they have 2 horses. The Eldritch Hounds, they got a solid top 3 as well.
You need a Chiron now. Gotta get more horses in there, and a Lancelot.
And then the Morgan.
Oh yeah, then you can have a full. Oh my gosh, you can actually have a full squad if you do that.
Yep, and
the transformation. Oh, that would be a fun composition. That'd be such an annoying composition to just go against. Like which horse got used? Was it the actual cavalry charge? Was it the fake cavalry charge? Was it, Hachiman's real horse? Was it a fake Hachiman horse? Who knows? Jumping into the bans at least, Thor and Bakasura. Banned by the Camelot Kings, putting more pressure on Oathh's picks. The opposite end, Eldritch Hounds, now with already having their Hunter and Hachiman, they'll ban away the Cernanos and the Ram to try and force Jarcorrr onto something else. Maybe notably, at least Chernobog, something that Jarcorrr has gone to a little bit, is still open. Eastar seems to have fallen by the wayside, at least for a lot of these Hunter players, so it might be some time maybe before we see her kind of pop her way back in. At least for some of these Hunter players out there. And then Cupid, got at least a little shout to Cupid and Izanami. Also both available. We've seen a couple of times from some of these players. AMC, so still running with the double Hunter. If you can't get Marty, is it weird to say that this is now maybe considered budget Marty?
That is definitely budget Marty. It is not weird. It is just factual. Marty does everything AMC does, but much, much better, much, much safer. I guess early pressure, I suppose. That's the one thing AMC might do a little better. His clear level, pre-level 5 is a little bit stronger. Besides that, you're going to want Marty every day of the week. But he's banned away, so it looks like BennyQ says, hey, I could still be a B, I could still provide that shred and do good damage. It's just a little bit more difficult because you don't have that level of safety and that level of range that Death from Above can provide.
So now, double Hunter, double frontline, waiting on Oathh's final pick for the Eldritch Hounds. Camelot Kings looking for Yark and either CaptainTwig or Variety's pick, depending on where this Vamana does end up slanting. As mentioned, it's only been CaptainTwig taking the Vamana for the Camelot Kings, so very likely looking for a pick for Variety and for Jarcorrr, the full side laners through here. Still quite a few Hunters available to Yark, and I wonder maybe what could be that priority pick for him. Do you think, based off of at least the list that we've seen from him, between the Izanami that's left, the Chernobog, Cupid, things like that, maybe even add the Ishtar just in for a potential conversation? You maybe think that the Ishtar, that Izanami could be one of the better ones of those remaining ones left over for him.
Yeah, at this point, you get the best of, I'm not going to say a bad bunch, all still strong, and the Iza is a pick that gets some value. It's just, you're going to be a little bit less safe. You're going to have to hold on to your Dasher, at this point probably your Relics, because Iza just doesn't have that same level of CC immunity. And it's going to be the Kuang lock-in. Wow. Interesting pickups here for the Eldritch Hounds. I do like the Kuang. I don't think that this is a bad pick. I think that that matchups can call for it, and when it does come through, it can look very good. The issue, however, is if you get behind it of Vamana, you lose so much value, right? You're not going to try and outbox the Vamana and Colossal Fury. If you're ahead, sure, you just one-shot him, you don't care. But from behind, it can be very difficult to try and deal with Colossal Fury. There's a reason Vamana is very highly contested. in the current meta, especially if you're going full damage and jungle. There's a lot of pick on the Hounds that can just get stomped away. I mean, AMC is going to have a hard time, especially if you're building good movement speed, but in my mind, you got to look towards solo lane. That was the conversation in game number 1. That's still the conversation here in game number 2. Is Variety getting ganked off cooldown? Is he getting executed? Is he getting put behind? If not, I think the Camelot Kings, once again, have a very strong team fight. They can sit back for a bit and just try and farm, and then they should be able to really excel around those objectives. But the Eldritch Hounds have shown they want to take it early on. Like, they want to show that aggression. They want to focus solo lane and then make those rotations. And with Ducky on the Guan Yu once again, they've got the ability to do so.
Well, now that he's actually been picked for the first time this weekend, maybe we can take a moment here, Charlie, to talk about the tier selection for the Camelot Kings. Got a buff in this 10.5 patch that came through. If you're in defensive stance, that blue stance, you get a stun on your ultimate now. If you're in red stance, you get a little bit of additional power thrown onto the ultimate there. Do you think that those extra buffs, just in kind of tandem with kind of how much tier has been bouncing around the meta, you think that maybe is an extra little boost here for the Camelot Kings up here in game number 2, Trelly?
No doubt. I think tier is extremely strong, maybe even a bit slept on because of those changes, or not because of those changes, slept on considering those changes. It's disgusting. If you can hit a massive ultimate, can change a team fight, sets up your Fearless so well. I think that, again, if Variety doesn't get camped early, if he's able to get to late game relatively even, this tier can make big waves in the backline, especially towards these ADCs.
So now, let's see if this tier can actually kind of break through here for the Camelot Kings. If Variety can get the ball rolling maybe in that solo lane, that extra bit of CC or damage really can kind of shake things up whenever it comes down to maybe these 1v1s, these tower dives as well. Could be fun to see what this tier can do for Variety and the Camelot Kings. But is this, at least from what I'm seeing, Joe, I mean, you have the Izanami, you've got early clear over in the duo lane, you've got a Terra, maybe not the best clear there, but at least supplemented by the Iza. Does this feel more like a late game style of team composition for the Camelot Kings, or is this one that can maybe tussle early up against the Hounds?
They've got some chances, but again, you're up against double ADC, so going towards late game can be scary.
It's going to be a difficult one for the Camelot Kings. Can they bounce back and slow the momentum of the Hounds, or are the Hounds going to roll through with a 2-0? Let's jump right in to game number 2.
I mean, there are serious implications on this one. If the Kings lose this set against the Eldritch Hounds, the wide world of differences that we could get in potential results from the end of this phase, they could be first seed. I guess in theory they could be as low as third seed, depending on how their match against the Ravens goes, depending on how the Hounds' final match of the phase goes. I mean, there's yeah, look at the swing.
Stock is plummeting for the Camelot Kings.
10% or so. I mean, my goodness.
What is that, 30-minute 10% loss?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Seems about right. You've never lost that much in that short amount of time.
10% of what?
Your money.
Yeah, I lost over 100.
In 10 minutes? Not
less than that.
All right, we're getting down a rabbit hole that we don't need to go down here, Miff. You did lose like $5 to all of Twitch chat a few years ago. And we'll call that your biggest loss of all time. Camelot Kings, though, look, they've been on a downswing, still favored 55-45. I might call this game an even 50-50. I was hoping to see a bit more from the Kings in game 1. They just kind of got ran off the map. A lot of changes, though, compositionally, and getting beads off of Coast in the first 30 seconds of the game tends to be a pretty good way to start. Genetics on something a bit different. He's got the Terra this time. Yark should be able to get some wave pressure building with his Izanami. But as it so often did in game 1, maybe it's just going to come down to Oathhh and Twig, and who's able to apply that pressure a bit better early in the game.
And I would argue it would beat CaptainTwig. There's just a much easier time on Vamana. Getting involved and dealing damage, you're much safer on this Vamana. Once you take over to level 5, the execute does tend to shift those scales ever so slightly to Oathhh, especially when you could threaten non-beads havers. So Variety, CaptainTwig himself, Genetics, all really going to struggle up against that execute from Kuang. That's not to say that there aren't answers in kit if Variety times Lawbringer perfectly, or if CaptainTwig can bait it out with Colossal Fury. You can avoid just being immediately removed from the map, but if we're going to see a game that's paced similarly to game 1, I don't see a world where the Eldritch Hounds lose this one out. Oathhh on the Kuang scaling it a late game. We haven't had too many opportunities to see it. I believe only one Kuang lock-in so far this year.
Is that an adapting game?
I believe so.
It was good.
And it was good. And he did it quickly, though. You don't have to, and Kuang doesn't need to win that way.
Oathhh over on the left side of the map. Gets a dash away from Jarcorrr.
Spooky.
Man, BennyQ run down by CaptainTwig. Some immobility maybe being called out early in the game. And that is a big difference. Look, with the Marty and the way BennyQ is able to play on Martikros late in the game, in Game 1, you could make an argument, yes, still ability-based Hunter on the AMC here in Game 2, but maybe a bit less safety compared to what the Martikros has.
And Benny struggled with his safety in Game 1. A few opportunities for the Camelot Kings to fight back in, afforded to them by BennyQ's positioning. Bailed out once or twice by death from above, but with AMC, he won't be nearly as lucky. He doesn't have that resource of, okay, let me just remove myself from the playfield, buy some time. AMC needs to be much more careful on map. Does benefit from having more constant additional movement speed. Martikros gets it from entering and exiting those bushes. As long as you're within honey range, BennyQ will be regenerating a bit of HP, a little bit more mobile on map, has the slow to create space. So long as he has learned his lessons from Game 1, I imagine Benny will do just fine here in Game 2. The Camelot Kings, if they learn their lesson from Game 1, need to start playing the game a little bit faster, I think. I mean, get something done on map, have CaptainTwig stay involved. And even in the 3 minutes we've viewed so far, CaptainTwig, I think, has made those adaptations, pressuring BennyQ, getting involved on the red buff, a couple of invade attempts already. So the Vamana, it could be a comfort thing, has looked a little bit better than the Hunbots already.
I'm glad you said that because I think it is. I mean, Twig has fallen back to this Vamana a few times throughout the year so far. I mean, it's in a good spot over in solo. I think he's one of the few junglers that's still reaching for it on a bit more of a regular basis. Could be 3v3 brewing over on left. Genetics is at level 5, so he'll have his ultimate. So will CaptainTwig. Quig's in trouble, and he riptides face first into a Genetics wall. That's a simple first blood, but mechanical play from Genetics brings it to the table.
That's classic Genetics right there. There's a reason there was an entire phase, it felt like, last year where he wasn't allowed to play this Terra. I'm thinking we're getting to that point again where he is just so much better on this pick than some of his others. The wall placement, the Earthen Fury placements as well. Genetics just different. He does not miss stuns just about ever. And this time, able to lock down Quig, keeps it simple. Oathhh was nearby. Could have potentially rotated in, but I believe a disengage call from the Eldritch Hounds, and Oathhh says, well, do it on your own then. I won't be coming in and getting caught out with CaptainTwig hovering nearby as well. Perhaps for the best. I think if Vamana's there, could have been more than just Quig that falls down. So it's the Camelot Kings who strike first this time around. Exactly what you need to see, especially as an adaptation to Game 1.
For the Eldritch Hounds, first place not in reach. They lost both their matches to the Highland Ravens already this phase. And the best they can do from 2 wins behind is tie them, in which case the head-to-head would take the advantage. But they will play up against the Styx Ferrymen tomorrow. So there's implications still as far as seeding goes. BennyQ's got to use the beads, but CaptainTwig, with his ultimate over in mid, nearly had the chase down onto the AMC. It's a little bit expended. But beadsless BennyQ Myth now has got to be a target for the Camelot Kings.
It was a well-timed beads, though. Even one more auto attack, or if the slow stacked up just a second longer, CaptainTwig likely secures that kill. So Benny makes the right decision and nearly is able to solo out BigManTingz. Don't want that to be lost in the pandemonium there. Was able to force BigManTingz all the way back into his own tower. But without beads, can he do it again? I don't think so. Not for the next 2 minutes.
Yeah, maybe not. Wondering if a fight may start up over on left. CaptainTwig without Colossal Fury, though Genetics with Earthen Fury. A lot of anger on the Camelot King side of the map. And Tyr, who's just generally mad about everything, it feels like.
He's a Lawbringer.
Yeah, but look at his face. He's grimacing. I don't know if that means he's angry, though. Ducky takes a tower shot, and a lot of damage from Variety.
Oh.
Dodges out. The up and over. So Ducky retreats, and he'll remain okay for now. Though I think the early pacings of this game, the first 6 minutes, already feeling a bit better for the Camelot Kings. They do not feel quite as at their depth as they were in the first game. This River's Rebuke is only going to slow Genetics down. There's no immediate damage on their way back in.
He's dead.
But now he's slowed. Oathhh just waiting for the execute. And he'll get it. And a kill for the Eldritch Hounds. After Quig locks down Genetics, and we've gone support for support in the first 10 minutes of the game.
And you can see that play repeated continuously throughout this game until Genetics picks up beads and maybe doesn't even do it. Terra's got no counterplay for that. That execute is guaranteed. So Oathhh, I think, can just keep rotating through this lane, have the walls tossed up by Quig. There's no Phantom Shell, so Genetics can't deal with that either. Would be pretty easy for him to stack up some of that damage. And that was without using Dragon Call, the stim for Kuang. That burn, not indicative of what I think you can expect to see going forward. Just needs to connect a couple more auto attacks and really does simplify that engagement. That said, Genetics does not go down without doing anything on map. At least steals away the small camps on purple, denying a little bit of farm from VaporishCoast.
Genetics right back to lane, right back to being active. Coast will take a Riptide out. How about this from the Camelot Kings? Early Gold Fury pull, they've got burn, and they've got it unless BennyQ or Quig gets in range, which they won't. Kings get the Gold Fury, but it's a kill for Oathhh over on the right side of the map. He'd been lurking there for a little bit of time. Completes the gank on a Variety, but a Colossal Fury might just save Twig's life. BennyQ takes a Riptide away, but he face plants into the wall. And Twig's got some cleave, but whoa, Coast out of lane. Flips the fight around. Ultimately ends up in a 2-kill swing for the Eldritch Hounds. They lose BennyQ, and they lose the Gold Fury.
But can the Eldritch Hounds do anything else to mitigate some of that global gold that goes the way of the Camelot Kings? I had thought it would have been a pressure in a tier 1 tower on right. No rotations for defense, but Oathhh and Ducky happy to leave that one up. Perhaps just trying to deny farm 2 tower. Variety misses out on 6 entire minions, an entire wave. Lost into the ether, no gold or experience gain for the Camelot Kings. Some neutral farm, perhaps could have been an innovative attempt, but Oathhh a little bit low on mana. Won't be able to do that either. So it's the Camelot Kings, I think, that come out slightly ahead there. Probably don't want to trade out that last death, but taking Gold Fury off the map, especially against this composition from the Eldritch Hounds, Double Hunter, burns through that objective very quickly. Add an auto attack Mage Jungle, burns even faster. So even if the Camelot Kings don't find value in the chart, they at least remove the potential of the Eldritch Hounds doing it themselves.
For the Eldritch Hounds, it's about staying active, where the Camelot Kings really in the dual lane. Kind of found their identity, found their footing after game 1. Genetics a bit more on it, it seems like, on this Terra than the Nox was able to be. For Variety, what you're hoping is that this is not a door opening to turn into just what game 1 did, where it was gank after gank after gank, and Variety just couldn't get there. Ended the game 0-5, 0-6, something like that. It's not easy for the Cerberus. You got to figure. A bit more mobile and disruptive on the tier, but doesn't always equate into lower deaths. VaporishCoast has at the moment a small baby over on the left side of the map, but could be large at any given moment. Now it's maybe Variety again. It's got to be worried. Lobbing her up and over. The slow connects for a little bit of burst damage. Wonder. Variety sticks around. How much trouble is he going to be in? A lot. Ducky needs to start tanking up this tower. Oathhh can't do much more of it. Variety out of tower range now. Blinks away. And he was in a lot of trouble. But again, mobility, relics, enough to keep Variety alive.
Yeah, Oathhh is stacking up a lot of damage, by the way. That Dragon Call, just tossing it out for the burst damage, looks very good into Variety. And now without ultimate and blink, likely needs to play safe in this lane. Execute works just as well against him as he would against Genetics. But Variety seems confident that Oathhh won't be sticking around. Quig, though, probably shouldn't be here either.
Quig smartly does not take the initial Riptide. There was a wall awaiting on the other end. Genetics sent down Earthen Fury over in mid. BigManTingz has a lot of burn building up. He's gone Charon's coin first into the Spear of Desolation. Get some percent pen and get the stacks starting to roll up a bit. That's where you get this Merlin burn early in the game. Pyromancer's up. This would be a great opportunity for the Eldritch Hounds to answer back. Neutral for neutral. The Gold Fury went to the Camelot Kings, but Quig is so low.
Look how fast it is.
But the Pyromancer simply melts, and the Eldritch Hounds now need to get out. Quig might just be a sacrifice. A 3-man Riptide into a massive River's Rebuke. But the Lawbringer from Variety is brought the fight right back to the Eldritch Hounds. Ducky can stick around maybe a bit longer. CaptainTwig will dispel the rest of this engagement. Quig for Pyro's the trade.
Ice Storm placement there from BigManTingz is what secures the escape route for Variety. Oathhh looking for some sort of damage here. Could have it. Off the mark with Dragon Call, so Variety survives once more. And talk about massive initiation. This is the small buff to tier that has really pushed him over the edge.
Yeah, that's right.
Every single time he goes into that Lawbringer from defensive stance, if he makes contact with an enemy, it's going to be a stun. If you're burning beads with a stun, that means they don't have it for the Fearless. And if they don't have it for the Fearless, likely fall immediately afterward. Variety creates a lot of space for his team there. Shouts Quig, though. Realizes he's going to die. There's not a whole lot he could do for himself, at least able to throw up that River's Rebuke and buy some space for his own team to disengage. Support for Pyro, a good trade.
Yep. Hounds will equalize the game on that note. This next Oni Fury fight, you imagine them to be a bit more active around. Where the Gold Fury was burnt by the Kings quickly. Hounds didn't have much of an answer, but now you've brought yourself right back into the game. It might have to be a response earlier than you were expecting because the Oni Fury is pulled by the Camelot Kings. You're right, there are a couple backs rolling through from the Eldritch Hounds, and all right, I'm wrong. They did not want to step up to the Oni Fury.
Surprising.
Camelot Kings will get it quietly. Now early in the game, you imagine the Hounds will be able to deal with the waves somewhat easily, but even still, neutral objective tendencies for the Camelot Kings, not a great look for the Hounds early.
And this is the pace of game I was expecting in game 1, where it's a whole lot of neutral objectives, force your fights there. Surprised that Benny does back. That Gold Fury is spotted by Quig. Benny has time to cancel it, but maybe they don't love their odds in the engagement, didn't love where Oathhh was standing, so couldn't quite get there in time and decide, let's not risk it. Gold Fury's not going to separate them that much. Gold's not even all that valuable. The Eldritch Hounds maintain a small lead up until this point. But it feels like they could have defended there.
Looks like Ducky and Twig will go, ult for ult. Variety ends up taking the stun. Thanks as jungler for it. Ducky's had a great set so far. Now Oathhh has brought a lot of pressure over towards right, but Variety has felt like a non-factor in game 1 and now a delayed factor maybe here in game 2. But are the Hounds even going to win any type of left side fight this game? Mounted
That's
archery
close.
necessary to get out of the fight. Quig will be slowed, but essentially takes no damage from BennyQ right now. Tanky Yemoja with the 20 stacks on the Prophetic, the 14-minute mark. Quig has done well in building up some of that defense.
That was really close there. Genetics nearly able to lock down VaporishCoast, those walls. Maybe one more unit to the left would have completely locked down that jungle pathway. Instead, Coast able to survive, but doesn't have ult for this.
Variety's on left. VaporishCoast uses the bead. Some of that initial lockdown just simply not connecting. And how about Quig taking up the entire lane with the River's Rebuke? Oathhh might have a second wind in this fight. And the walls from Genetics didn't hit. The stun from Variety didn't hit. Twig did not have ultimate, and so a big swing from the Kings. And ultimately cost them a tier 1 tower in mid. Now maybe actually a tower on left as well.
Yeah, the Kings, they try their best to initiate, but if it's going to be a dash forward from Twig and an ult in from Variety, Genetics running you down as well. Simple for Quig to simply just spawn up those waves, say, hey, you're not walking through this not until you finish up your Phantom Shell.
Did you almost just I'm walking here me?
What do you, what?
You almost just did the I'm walking here.
No.
That is unreal.
Absolutely not.
From
You're
you.
making things up.
I'm not.
Just because they can't see me doesn't mean you can just lie about what I'm doing.
Okay. Keep going with your analysis.
All right, Phantom Shell will be finished by York before too long, so there's the counterplay for that. I really wasn't, Dave. Stop looking at me, man.
I'm throwing you off your game.
A little bit.
You're such a fan. It's unreal.
Of who? Of
Me?
whomst?
Me.
Okay, I am.
I'm a big Myth fan too. It's okay. Pyromancer standing. That's what the Eldritch Hounds have been able to trade out. A couple Furies for the Kings. 1 Pyro for the Hounds. There's a bit more damage stacking up now. Genetics does not have beads. Still level 11.
Oathhh does no damage to that guy.
Yeah. Oathhh was doing a lot of damage. That slowed down a bit. Do more Benedesso. Looks like a bit more flat pen after that as well. And counter to what the Hounds have chosen to do around the Furies, it looks like the Kings do want to step forward. Around this Pyromancer, Variety leaps forward. No stun onto Oathhh, but Oathhh has to use the beads after the fact. Anyway, Quig ultimately run down in mid. And a stinger out from BennyQ will return a bit of damage back to the Vamana. Got to be careful now in a 5 versus 4. Not sure the Hounds want to continue this fight, but a pick on a Variety would feel great. Oathhh, though, has chosen the exit option. Essentially half HP across everyone. Ducky cleaving the entirety of the Camelot Kings. And this Guan Yu has just kept this fight going.
Yeah, Ducky's doing a whole lot here and continues to do so. Now Genetics drop low, force use the ultimate defensively. And it's the Eldritch Hounds
Wow.
who come out better on the other side.
And Quig is going to be back here shortly, so it's
that's
actually going to be a
big.
bit of a health reset when the Yemoja gets back in this fight. Pyromancer ends up going to the Hounds after a pick on a Quig.
This could be
Blinks
fire.
all over the place. Kings backing away.
They have to back. It's 5 stack from the Hounds. This could be a fire call.
Well, Eldritch Hounds are going to keep the Camelot Kings on the map. Variety dashes through. Ducky's still here. Has cavalry charge. Insta-cancel. And a kill onto Variety. And now a runic bomb in the back pocket. You're right, Myth. Maybe the burn around the corner. And the Hounds, they want to push the lead at the 17-minute mark.
Genetics in base. CaptainTwig nearby, but no ultimate. Is the turnaround there?
Whoa, it sure is. And Oathhh has a killing spree and still has his ultimate. A dark portal from Jarcorrr at the feet of the Eldritch Hounds. The wall from Genetics met with the beads for Ducky. Yark, within an
wants
inch
it.
of his life, will live. And the Fire Giant still stands, but Variety and Twig have died.
You've got so much time to play with. Jarcorrr now back in base. The Eldritch Hounds, do they not want the Fire Giant? A Gold Fury call here. Double Hunter composition. I get that you're close to but Oathhh's burn as well. I feel like they really could have continued to leverage that lead. I mean, even look at the vision on the right-hand side. There is no path into the Fire Giant that the Camelot Kings could have taken.
Go to the Kings.
And the Hounds wouldn't have known about it. Yeah,
Yeah.
This is what you do. That is insane.
The Kings now choose to pull the Fire Giant that the Eldritch Hounds left on the map. Now the Hounds,
What?
they're going to rotate towards right. Do the Kings stick on it? That's the question. Ultimates just about back up.
Benny's
Kings still tanking up the Fire Giant just a bit. It's down to half. It's reset.
Oh,
Sustains
too.
up a bit. But ultimately, the Kings say no. Gold Fury for the Eldritch Hounds, but a risky moment, a risky call to stall the aggression. Nearly gave the Kings an opening.
Dumbfounded, Dave. I'm absolutely dumbfounded that the Eldritch Hounds decided to go for Gold Fury there. It's much safer. It is certainly a much safer call in that you will not die going for Gold Fury. But even that brief opening to the Camelot Kings around that Fire Giant could have been massively detrimental. If the Camelot Kings had the same bird's eye view that we did, that would have been a clear Fire Giant call, and I don't think the Eldritch Hounds could have stopped him. But because BennyQ doesn't reveal himself, they don't realize he's completely Oathh's half HP and maybe a quarter mana at the time, doesn't reveal himself, so the Camelot Kings probably just assumed that they had reset and were on the way back to base already, or from base, I should say. The Eldritch Hounds bailed out a bit by their superior vision control on the right-hand side. But with all that work that they had just done, a pick onto Genetics into a pick onto Variety, around the Fire Giant while 5 stacked, they're going to have to do it all again if they actually want the Fire Giant itself. And this time without VaporishCoast, who's decided to rejoin the left side of the map. This is a complete neutral reset.
Yep. Oathhh is strong. Level 18 to the 15.
Oh, he's massive now.
Of
He hits hard.
CaptainTwig. Ducky 2 levels ahead of Variety as well. Think about game 1. Where were the leads? They were on the right side of the map. The jungle, the solo lane. It's happened exactly the same way. And what has felt like a much closer game 2. We've ultimately gotten there anyway. Yark might get soloed by the solo kid. He'll run down
Are you
Jarcorrr
sure?
in the minion wave.
Are you sure?
Yark has flipped it. I've spoken too soon. He's the getting soloed kid.
Okay, well.
Yark flips the script, but the Eldritch Hounds have started up the FG. They finished it as well. And Variety will dash out. But the big play to Yark on left to keep it from being a horrible moment for the Kings.
Yeah, VaporishCoast. I mean, the play is clean all the way up until that full commitment to fight Jarcorrr in waves. Simple. To hide behind those minions and easy for Jarcorrr, who is originally one of the most soloingest hunters in the league. He's the solo kid.
That's right.
Clean. Clean stuff from the Izanami. Keeps the game alive, if only barely. What was it that Hurrywin had called the hunters on Fire Giant Siege? The battery of the team. How are you going to break the base if your hunter doesn't have fire? Well, you got 2 of them. That's how you do it. So now it's up to BennyQ to really start working through these structures. And a small silver lining for the Camelot Kings as they strip away a pyro.
Get the runic bomb as a result. Yeah, I guess if there's any lane that I'm assuming will take 1v1 fights, I would assume Coast versus Yark. Maybe more than any 2 other players in the league. Coast looked for it. Came a bit short this time. Happens every once in a while. You swing for the fences. I don't know. I guess you strike out sometimes.
Swing for the fences, but sometimes you don't hit the ball.
Shoot for the stars, and you land right back on the ground every once in a
Well,
while.
what goes up must come down.
Every once in a while, it sure does.
All the time.
Every once in a while.
Okay.
I guess if you're in orbit, you're constantly on the way down. That's what free fall is. That's what weightlessness is in space. Do you know that?
Free fall?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, just making sure you're filled in.
You're always affected by gravity somewhat. All right. Never mind.
Camelot Kings will at least drop a tier 1 over on left. Coast right back to the split push things. Going to open up a bit of pressure.
Coast is thinking to himself, I dare Jarcorrr to show up again. I dare you.
Try again.
Yeah, see if you get lucky twice.
Well, he's got all 4 teammates also rotating to the left side of the map. Coast might have to ult away here.
I would.
He's slow and will ultimate away. So Oni Fury spawns forth. There's some sustain for Coast here, but this just feels awkward right now for the Hounds. They're a bit disjointed where the Camelot Kings have really been clean. They've grouped up together. Stinger's also been used. What the Hounds are looking for here. Get a little bit of damage onto Genetics. You'd be able to finish off the kill. Should. Coast dashes forward, and then a Riptide away. Nearly saves his life. But now CaptainTwig with a second wind in this fight. Hopes to chase down BennyQ, unable to do so.
Oathhh in the back line has eyes for variety. No ultimate means execute would stick. The Camelot Kings forced to retreat once more. Oathhh has spent a lot of time in these fights hovering the sidelines. Hasn't necessarily been able to really connect his own damage. This Kuang is now not just an execute bot. He does a whole lot of damage. Given an opportunity, I think even up against CaptainTwig through Colossal Fury, might be able to kill him. Variety pulled back. There's the cripple, but not able to get through that Ice Storm. Good peel from BigManTingz. Secures the escape route for the sole laner of the Camelot Kings. And thus ends the Fire Giant power play. Fire on 4. Nothing accomplished on map. All for a Gold Fury.
Yeah, it's tough. Coast, but effectively dead for 2 minutes of the 3-minute buff. It's not having your Hachiman on the map for a little bit of time. Didn't feel the best for the Eldritch Hounds. Still got the FG, a little bit of gold maybe on the back end, but far from the game-ending type of setup Fire Giant you're hoping for. Kings will, in all likelihood, knowing what we know about the Kings, step forward and maybe feel okay contesting this objective. A runic bomb for both teams, so call that type of secure. Just about even. I think we might be seeing our first big 5v5 over here on right. All the neutral objectives across the map down.
There's still no Phantom Shell for Jarcorrr. I had thought this would be finished a little bit sooner. So the Eldritch Hounds can keep running back the play. Genetics steps up to try and initiate the fight. Have Quig throw up the walls. Keep it easy. Yeah, you're right. Oathhh on the left-hand side, so maybe not as easy as you'd like. And still not on his way to this Fire Giant fight. Instead, back to base. We'll walk over slowly. Should at least pick up a few wards, but this is really slowing them down. They can't do anything.
All right. Or rather upgrades the starter and a Pyromancer. So usually what we see is the team say, all right, we're kidding about the fire. We'll go to left, get the Pyromancer, and then head back to fire. A few moments later. Map state just about equal for both teams. All the tier 1s across the map gone. All the tier 2s still remaining. A bit more damage into the Camelot Kings side of the map. Both would love this avenue to turn into a bit of poke damage. Kill onto a beadsless target. CaptainTwig has ultimate but no beads. River's Rebuke early from Quig. Variety shoves the Yemoja back. And the walls crash together in what was a bit of a lackluster ultimate. Twig has won his trade, but Eldritch Hounds have won the Pyromancer, and both teams have to reset.
Yeah, Oathhh is playing as if he's a standard mage. I have not seen Dragon Call into auto attack combo a single time this game. Even there, I thought, simple, okay, Quig throws up the walls, you got it, right? Just jump onto Genetics and apply your damage and take him to the air, but because Oathhh had thrown out Dragon Call as ranged nuke damage so many times, doesn't have the burn to actually threaten the support. Variety in first, double stun.
Double stun, but beads off of BennyQ. Twig now on the chase. He's going to take a heap of damage in return from the Eldritch Hounds. Way behind this fight is Ducky, who's had a great game out of solo so far. Dark Portal not enough, and Variety may now have gone too far. He has an execute from
this could be big.
4 members of the Kings grouped up, but the reinitiation from the Kings is simply better.
Needs one more.
Genetics on the edge of dropping, however. A rampage from Oathhh, but a better team fight from the Camelot Kings.
Ducky's still alive and healthy. Doesn't have the ultimate, but does have the damage to stop CaptainTwig. Doesn't turn the corner, so Twig back to base. It's the Camelot Kings and CaptainTwig in particular that deserve every bit of credit there. The Eldritch Hounds with the free pick on the Variety. Oathhh thinking about how amazing this reinitiation is going to be. So many lined up from the Kings to dunk onto. But similarly, the Eldritch Hounds grouped up so severely. Have CaptainTwig go in, and I believe a 4-man knock-up from the Vamana. You can't write it better for the Camelot Kings. Makes it really easy to apply your damage and knock down these squishy targets. Coast, Benny. Death Timer is in sync, and for good reason. When the CC applies as well as it has, the Camelot Kings prolong the game once more. Keep that gold lead stagnant and even cut it. Now they're on to the Primal Fury, but does this mean you've done too much on field? The Eldritch Hounds, they're on respawn. BigManTingz going to be forced back to base here, as will CaptainTwig. Could be an immediate Fire Giant pull.
Got to be an immediate Fire Giant pull if you're going to take advantage of the numbers.
Too late.
Heading back to base, and yeah, immediately.
Coast is too busy hunting Jarcorrr on the left.
Yeah, he's sticking with it. Now it's rent-free in Coast's head. He's got to try again. Not sure he's going to get the opportunity this game. Now we're grouping and we're fighting. Variety still 2 levels behind. It's 27-minute mark, still level 18 on this tier. Full build still around the corner from Ducky. No starter item upgrade from Variety either. But Ducky does have the starter upgraded and 2 runic bombs. Wonder how long this dance is going to go. 28 minutes, minute and 45 away from Enhanced Fire Giant. On a knife's edge, Miff. Game 1 felt like the Hounds really firmly in control of the game at this point. Not here in Game 2. Kings have shown us their ability to fight back in and stabilize games that are starting to get out of hand.
But the Eldritch Hounds, still the proactive element. Not nearly as much as it was previously. Now it could be either side that starts up the Fire Giant. Itemization here or there, still favoring the damage dealers of the Eldritch Hounds. Relics. Bit of a graveyard. 20 seconds left on Variety and CaptainTwig's beads, as well as Jarcorr's. But I don't see anything happening in these next 15, 20 seconds. The Eldritch Hounds really are just waiting, maybe for the Camelot Kings to go for the Fire Giant themselves. Counter initiation, I think, easier for the Eldritch Hounds here. Same could be said of the Kings, though.
Genetics roots a couple. Dashes forward, loses half of his life in trade. Yark a few swings and misses. He's full build. This Izanami has officially reached late game status. So watch out front lines. VaporishCoast still needs a couple tiers of an item to finish out that build. Will still hurt, just plenty. Don't worry. If you're a Hounds fan. Yet again, though, the Pyromancer sprouts forth. You'd love 3 runic bombs if you're the Eldritch Hounds. Looks like, barring a reset, nearly stolen away by CaptainTwig, but a 3rd runic bomb for the Eldritch Hounds. That's 3,000 burst damage onto what will be an Enhanced Fire Giant should the Hounds drop all of them there, but how difficult sieging has been, you'd love to save them. No waves, no threat across the map, Miff. It's just going to be someone overextending or maybe someone rotating out to split push that's going to make the difference.
But who can split push easily? There's no global presence. You could send the Soul Inner, maybe Ducky on the split push, but he's been such an integral part of the initiation as well as the sustain for the Eldritch Hounds that you need him in the fight. He's the only one that's got the teleport, though.
Yep.
I think it's really going to come down to first pick. I don't see a world where either side's got an easy avenue.
Double stun, leap in, BennyQ's in trouble, but the AMC lives a bit longer. Unfortunately, one runic bomb's not going to find anything. Duck in the back of the blue buff. He's going to get doubled by CaptainTwig, and it's all set up by genetics. The Hounds stepped too far forward, and think about it. Coast was on left getting purple. He went back. There was no fight back potential. You didn't have your ADC. And now the Kings get EFG right as it turns at 30 minutes.
You might believe the Camelot Kings have got the bird's eye view. I mean, the Eldritch Hounds are refusing to play as 5. Trepidatiousness cost them all their opportunities. The Camelot Kings, they don't have that same level of hesitation. Instead, an initiation from Variety, a 3-man stun off the Lawbringer. Immediately afterward, Genetics locks them down. And given the opportunity, the Kings play it fast.
Quite a turnaround from CaptainTwig. Now 6-2 and 4 in this game. Right side Phoenix taken down. CaptainTwig wants his 7th, and he'll get it. He's a rampage. Maybe at the end of game 2.
That's got to be Jeej.
Burnt once more. Dash away, but a double kill from CaptainTwig. Now has completed this turnaround. And Miff, 2 respawns left from the Eldritch Hounds, mid, ADC, and solo still on the map.
But the only one that's posing legitimate threat are these hunters. If you can deal with either VaporishCoast or Benny, might just have the damage to ignore the other and go into the Titan room. No ultimate for Twig, no ultimate for Variety, but the rest still strong.
Coast has Aegis, does not have beads. Ducky tanking up all of it. BigManTingz zoning out. The AD carry, nice stuns through, but VaporishCoast has to use the Aegis. It's a shutdown from BennyQ onto CaptainTwig. And now an immediate bailout from the Camelot Kings. Wonder if the Hounds want to chase this out any further. Goodness. BennyQ steps into Tingz' damage, and Tingz wags his finger and says, no, you're headed back to base. Minute and a half left on the EFG, and the right side, Phoenix, is gone.
So that's an opportunity given over to the Eldritch Hounds because of how well they had played up until this point in defending their own side of the map. 2 tier 2 towers still standing, Titan benefiting from the additional protections and HP. Means the Camelot Kings really did need to focus on the PvP if they wanted to close it out there. And we're not quite able to secure their kills. Ducky survives at 10%. BennyQ the exact same. The Camelot Kings forced back, but they've done the hard part. They've broken the base. Right side bird down. They can start looking elsewhere. Not a whole lot of time left on this Fire Giant power play. 1 minute, I believe. Which should be enough to at least grab one more tier 2 tower.
Well, luckily for the Eldritch Hounds, it's a right side Phoenix. And so you're going to be able to defend that when the next FG pops up. And the gold is going to be even. Really, it's going to come down to picks again, where Genetics set everything up with the double wall. And then the follow-up from tier now looks a bit different. You can chain those stuns together, provided you're in the defensive stance when you leap over the Lawbringer. This is probably smart from the Hounds, tier 2. Not worth enough at this point in the game to want to step forward and defend it. The Oni Fury, actually a little decent for the Eldritch Hounds at this point in the game. Pushes out some of the waves, delays the fire minions just a bit longer. Pyromancer picked up for the Camelot Kings. We'll take a breather once more. Somebody's got to find this Merlin here, Miff. 32,000 damage at the 34-minute mark. BigManTingz has felt undivable so far in this game.
Keep your eyes on Oathhh. He just hit a massive power spike. Polynomicon has increased his burst twofold, maybe 3. Essentially gives you 2 ticks of your third ability. So, connect it, hit your auto attack afterward, maybe Dragon Call to secure the kill, and you're not as reliant on that ultimate. With the relics as strong as they are for the Camelot Kings, all coming back off cooldown in the next half minute, and ward coverage should start to lean in their favor as well soon. Could be the difference.
Genetics is caught in. Variety is back at base. Variety does not have teleport. What ultimates start to swing here? I believe just both supports drop their ults. They do. Ankh also used by Quig. So, not a costly initiation from the Eldritch Hounds, and not a costly extension there from Genetics. Fire Giant spawns up. Right side Phoenix, only another minion wave or 2 of fire minions for the Camelot Kings. Variety looks for the blink, doesn't get anything with it. But still, this aggressive positioning from the Kings has kept the Eldritch Hounds on the back foot.
But no Phantom Shell for 90 seconds means that there will be an opportunity for Quig to toss up a River's Rebuke that sticks. Right side Phoenix on respawn, only one more enhanced wave to deal with. Eldritch Hounds should be able to easily clear that one out. Regroup, defend the Fire Giant. Benny will knock it down here. Can the Camelot Kings do it once more? Remember, it was a perfect initiation. Oh, I thought I saw Genetics blink, and I'm thinking to myself, what's going on here? No. Must have been my eyes. But it took a perfect initiation in the last round of engagement so that to open the door for the Camelot Kings.
Oh, no. It's nearly going to happen again. One of the carries gets stunned. Oh, but Oathhh has found Jarcorrr. It's the first kill to the Eldritch Hounds. It's going to get traded out at least, but you still got an ADC on the map. This one's full HP. It's BennyQ, but he's fighting out with BigManTingz. Oathhh has found the front line. Genetics
Here's the
will
chase.
go up to the sky, and BigManTingz is going to lose the fight as well.
Here
in the
comes
meantime, BennyQ standing his ground, but a triple kill from CaptainTwig has kept the fight where it's at. Oh,
Clean.
flickers away. That's unreal, and it's a deicide for the Eldritch Hounds, and Oathhh and Ducky, the last 2 standing.
Synced death timers, 30 seconds on Jarcorrr. Takes about 15 to work your way across the map. I don't think the Eldritch Hounds can knock down a Phoenix here. Instead, much more likely a Fire Giant play. I agree. That is dangerous. Props Oathh. Clean to avoid that stun for Variety. If that ultimate connects, CaptainTwig secures the kill. Instead, it's the battle of the junglers in that fight. Backline dive, even until the very end. Oathh able to get up into the air with the execute and rejoin his own backline. Turns things on its head.
I wonder if you try to delay here.
You can at least delay 5 seconds.
Yeah, 5 for Coast, another 5 after that for Quig.
You can get Quig, not Benny.
Yeah, BennyQ's going to be 10 seconds away. You're not going to roll those dice.
Maybe you hold it the whole time? Yark's not even on the way.
Do you know where Yark is? If you don't know where Yark is, it's not worth a dice roll. It's the Eldritch Hounds seem to think, and that's EFG number 2 of the game, but number 1 for the Eldritch Hounds. And Myth, they've got the full duration to try to push out this map.
And they've got a good composition for Siege, Dave. You've got Sustain from Ducky and Quig. Matched up with the Fire Giant Natural Sustain means you should be able to stay out on field for a good long while. Double Hunter comp means that you don't even need a minion wave, just make contact with a tower or a Phoenix. Let me knock down quickly. Even Polynomicon from Oathh can really expedite the process. Double Runic Bomb held onto as well. You're not going to see him on tier 2s, but could very easily blow up a Phoenix. Let's talk about defense, though, from the Camelot Kings, and it is very good. You've got the Merlin. You've got the Terra for counter initiation, Variety. I'd argue on tier last patch, not great on defense. On this patch, massive AoE stun in a small area around your own bird means that you likely will find value from that. And even Jarcorrr can deal with these minion waves very easily himself. So the Eldritch Hound's really going to earn it. I wonder if it's a 4-1 split here, and if that's the case, who's the one? Likely would be Oathh. You really do like his odds in a 1v1 up against CaptainTwig. Instead, it's a 3-2 split. Got to be careful, though. This is where the Eldritch Hounds got caught last time.
Variety.
Big initiation.
Yep, Variety will get a shove onto Oathh. But Oathh able to return a little bit of damage. He's dodging out so
he's
much,
so
and
fast.
nobody from the Camelot Kings has been able to close the gap. Oh, he flickers away once more. And he has damage nearly for the turnaround. But CaptainTwig with the clear pick. Ducky does not have ultimate to chase this down and won't have the ability to chase it down. A kill for the Camelot Kings onto Oathh, a priority target. I think that effectively stalls out the remainder of this FG.
Needed Oathh to survive that one for the Eldritch Hounds. Not quite able to make his escape. All that movement speed in build for CaptainTwig is the difference maker. Double Katana means that you've got the chase down. But keep your eyes on the Hounds, Dave. I don't think they're done just yet.
One more tier 2.
They could just try and blow up a Phoenix and disengage, or the tier 2. It will be. You gotta be careful now. The Camelot King's privy of your positioning.
Yeah, this is awkward. Can you out-rotate Tings? You can.
Watch Variety.
But not everyone is on the same page here. This is going to be a collapse in. Variety shoves Quig aside. Takes some damage in trade. BigManTingz attempt to poke out a few members of the Hounds. We've crossed the 40-minute threshold here in Game 2. We're no clearer at finding a winner than it felt like we were 40 minutes ago.
Uh-oh.
Now is it Variety who's
got
maybe
ult.
stuck around a bit too long? Cancelled, but still a chase to be had. Are the Hounds baiting themselves in now? That's the question. How quickly can you get this kill onto Variety?
Fast.
Oathh is back on map.
4v4.
Can you keep this fight going? It's a 4v4 for now. But Oathh is about to rejoin the fight from base. What happened to Jarcorrr? BennyQ happened to Jarcorrr. But CaptainTwig has been the one flipping these fights all game long. I'm not sure he has the ability to do so one more time. BigManTingz needs the last bit of damage on a Ducky.
Here comes
Got
Oathh.
it. And Oathh now officially back into the fight in a riptide. Keeps
got the
things
slow.
even. A slow onto BigManTingz, but it's traded back onto Oathh.
Fire Giant has worn off, so there are backdoor protections, but this late in the game and this far into your builds doesn't seem to matter. The Eldritch Hounds knock down the right side bird. Easiest to defend, while simultaneously contesting the Fire Giant, but with CaptainTwig dead for 50 and Jarcorrr for 30. I don't think there will be a defense around this Fire Giant, Dave. The Eldritch Hounds.
Do you think they pull the FG
They played well here.
again? Do you think you wait
Oh, you're pulling it immediately.
right now? We were not worried about Benny or Ducky or resetting. You think 3v2 on the map? You'd want to right go for it?
I think so, but Ducky and Benny off map. Oathh had already gone back to base. You lose a lot of your power play potential here. A pick onto genetics, though, could be massive, or even just a bit of poke.
Yep.
Could send him back. Pulling the Fire Giant's the right call. Make it happen quick.
Variety's back alive. BennyQ is as well. Ducky will have teleport, so
look how fast it is.
Travel time might be close, but they got to burn. They got to burn this if they want it. The Camelot Kings step forward. The Hounds will not complete the EFG, and Ducky will teleport. And we are 5v5ing once again. You got to take stock of relics in a moment like this. 45 seconds away from beads on both the carries for the Camelot Kings. BennyQ just does not have Aegis for 40. Beads and Aegis for Coast and Ultimate. Hachiman should be okay. Seems like it's going to come down to which of the double-digit kill junglers can make that pick happen one more time.
Yeah, CaptainTwig's been doing a great job of it, but now Oathhh has just got so much more burst potential that it's going to be difficult for Twig to match it. Twig is reliant on the rest of his team being able to follow up with him and essentially use him as a windbreak. Just get behind him, get in his wake. But instead, it's the Eldritch Hounds who have completely ceded the defensive positioning.
And they've done this a couple times.
Yeah, they've got fire defensive positioning now. They've got vision and pit. The Eldritch Hounds are going to have to fight their way back in. Only one sentry in pocket as well. Means that they need to be real choosy with which ward they decide to take away. Camelot Kings doing a good job keeping presence on map, but keep your eyes on those enhanced minion waves. Fire minion wave about to head into the base of the Kings.
Coast has a 3K pot just waiting to be used. He'll use it now. The burn on the FG commences. Ducky zoning out 3 members of the Camelot Kings, but the fire is dropped. Ducky is alone in the backline here, and he might die alone in the backline. Burn, runic bombs, all of it's being dodged. He'll get into the River's Rebuke, but that's a kill onto Ducky, and the Hounds were just not on the same page as the Guan Yu.
He went so
the
far.
Health bars are somewhat low here.
Good slow.
The Hounds might need to chase this back out. Oathhh through the team, but Oathhh will die. BennyQ has a trade back. Variety dashes through again, and BennyQ has kept this fight alive. It's a similar trade from both teams. Both solo laners gone, but it's mid on one side. It's Yark standing his ground against Coast again. A triple kill from BennyQ has given the Hounds an opening. And the Hounds grouping up as 3, walking towards mid.
CaptainTwig can't match damage here. Double Hunters, if he walks forward, it's a wall of damage he'd be walking into. Slowly resustaining VaporishCoast. If he's hit by a knockup, would just die. Keep your eyes on the blink from CaptainTwig.
They've got 2 runic bombs. They've got 2 runic bombs, Smith. That could be massive on this Titan siege here. A brawl of a 45-minute game.
Half HP.
May come to a close, but VaporishCoast dashed at. BennyQ with 4 in the final fight. And the Eldritch Hounds will 2-0 the Camelot Kings.
A rejuvenated Eldritch Hounds team looking good in the last couple of weeks here. The Kings, this is a much different pace than what I'd expected. Even in the last couple of losses, I'd argue it was the Camelot Kings still playing their own style. This week, a departure, nearly back to form here in Game 2, but the Eldritch Hounds just bring a little bit too much.
Miff, with this win, the Eldritch Hounds have won 5 of their last 6 sets that they've played here in the SPL.
That's nuts.
The Order side is just all taking games off one another. And this is where things get really interesting, because if you're looking at the Camelot Kings and now their possibilities, with a win over the Ravens tomorrow, they would hold the tiebreaker. They'd be tied at 6-4.
Yep.
And the tiebreaker would go to the Camelot Kings. But there's a world where if the Kings lose and the Eldritch Hounds win, the Kings end in 3rd. So the Kings could, in theory, be just about anywhere going into this final day of play in Phase 1 of the SMITE Pro League. My goodness, Eldritch Hounds are on something. The Kings still have something to figure out. 2-0 to the Eldritch Hounds, and the desk will break down this 45-minute game.
Man, and what a barn burner of a game this 45-minute one was here for the Eldritch Hounds to find a win. So many moments, especially Charlie, that last 15 to 20 minutes of that game. Felt like it could have swayed either way.
Oh, yeah.
Camelot Kings finding big picks. Oathhh coming up big, finding a triple. Kind of the tail end of that game. Nearly could have been a penta for CaptainTwig at one point during that fight. Just these last 15 minutes just so back and forth between the two teams. I really had no idea where this game was going.
I just want to watch the highlights at this point because you're right. It was an absolute banger. The junglers, I think both junglers, had a fantastic performance. CaptainTwig getting his hands on the Vamana and Oathhh on the Kuang. That last fight, I mean, Ducky was doing some great things, but it was that last fight where Ducky goes way too far. Oathhh doesn't get any sort of value, and then it's just BennyQ. I mean, it's just AMC absolutely pumping out damage numbers. This was the play here. I just want to shut up and just watch him work.
Let's watch.
Where's your ult? Shut up, nerd. Turn around. Bop. Dead. That's all I
Clean.
needed to say.
Just clean play for Oathhh on
Clean
this.
play. I had to just watch him work, man. Oathhh on the Kuang. It's not a very highly contested pick, but when it gets through, big plays. And, of course, BennyQ absolutely popping off there at the end. We were talking about, hey, Mom, can I have Marty Koras? Oh, I've got Marty at home, and it's the AMC. But this AMC showed he can still absolutely pop off in a team fight.
Yeah, fantastic game from BennyQ. Didn't start out the best form, I believe, at one point, looking up 1-4, nearly 1-5 on him. But picking up 4 kills in that last fight, a triple kill in the fight, and then 1 more in the Titan room. And ending the game, 54,000 player damage. VaporishCoast, his damage number is absolutely insane as well. 41k, even despite the 1-4 and 16 slash line. Those big assists coming through for that fight. But got to give a lot of credit to Oathhh, to Benny. Quig, especially in that last fight, keeping BennyQ alive for as long as he physically could at that point. The Eldritch Hounds are a different beast right now, Charlie. And with a performance like this, they're eyeing for that top spot.
Yeah, they certainly are. And they have shown so much growth, right? At the beginning of the season, we were talking about, it's a newer team. There's some rookies. Maybe there's some growing pains. They said, nope, forget about that. We are going to show that we can absolutely have a win streak just like anybody else. And there's some picks on this squad that I don't think I would ever want to give up to them again.
Well, one of the guys who was able to help turn this game back around with a big triple kill up against the Camelot Kings. It's Oathhh standing by for our post-game interview.
Yeah, Oathhh, have you ever considered if you stop doing well, you won't have to keep coming in to do these interviews?
That's true. It's been like 4 in a row, I think now, 5 maybe.
You've been dropping double-digit kills in all of these games, and so unfortunately we got to pull you in one more time here, Oathhh. Look, you guys, the Eldritch Hounds, you've won 5 of your last 6 sets after maybe a slow starter, if you can even call it that. I mean, a couple games at the beginning of the phase didn't go your way. What do you think's been working so well for the team?
We've just kept improving. Ever since week 1, we just always keep finding new ways to win, and we just, I think, have started working really well with each other, and just drafts, just team fights, all of that. I'm really proud of them, and yeah, nice.
Talk to me a bit about game 2, because that seemed, obviously, really all the team steps up at different points in there. It felt like jungle dive v jungle dive. Twig's getting some stuff done in the team fights. You're getting some stuff done in the team fights. Walk me through that dynamic, the Kuang versus the Vamana.
So honestly, the fights were super split. You just have one fight, one backline dive here, one backline dive all the way on the other side of jungle. Honestly, late game, Kuang's really crazy burst damage wise. So I think I was able to one shot there. There is a few fights, and then just turn it into outs2, and then you just kind of snowball the team fights really well late game. And I had no idea what Twig was doing because I'm just doing my own
on the other side, right?
Yeah. The last fight I inted so hard though. That was insane. My team.
Yeah, but you opened the door to BennyQ to drop 4 kills.
I created the space.
That's right.
It
was all
the aggro. Yeah. So
that's right. That's a good way of thinking about it. Final question. Was BennyQ actually smelling his new deodorant at the beginning of that set?
I believe it was Old Spice.
Got it. Does it smell good?
It smells pretty good, yeah.
Okay, good. We're on board with it. Congrats. 5 of the last 6 wins for the Eldritch Hounds. More good things in the future. Back to the desk.
Just a great little bit of fun there.
If you're not smelling the boys' deodorant, what are you doing?
Yeah, look, you got to make sure that you and your boys are smelling great coming in for a game like this, especially when you take down a team like the Camelot Kings. Let's take a look at the schedule because, man, that was only game number 2 of our second day. We still got one more set to go today. And then, Charlie, we got a full action-packed series of games tomorrow as well. A 2-0 for the Eldritch Hounds. Notches them up a little bit higher up in the standings. We'll end our day today with the Leviathans and the Gladiators. That set's going to be coming up here very shortly. And we'll open back up. Leviathans in studio once more against the Jade Dragons to kick off Sunday. And the Ferrymen and Hounds tomorrow, and the Kings and Ravens. And the wildest part about all this, Charlie, is that we still won't know who first seed is until the end of the sets tomorrow. We won't know if it's going to be the Eldritch Hounds jumping up, if the Highland Ravens clinch it, if the Camelot Kings can bounce back with it. We won't know until the last game of Sunday is determined at that point. And to me, that might be the craziest thing that we've seen in a season or even in a phase in such a long time.
But, J-Mac, I wouldn't have it any other way. I
couldn't ask for a better way.
I'm going to be glued to the monitor, or I guess in this case, wherever I'm casted from, just to make sure I'm making sure I know exactly what happens there between the Camelot Kings, between the Ravens, between the Hounds, between the Ferrymen. It's going to be an absolute banger of a Sunday, but that's the beauty of it. This order division just keeps on delivering.
And Charlie, I'm one to like to encourage the fans to make memes out there. You know, every single week that we have Oathhh for an interview, we always see the genetics memes that comes up. You know, what's he holding instead of the microphone?
Yep.
I think this time Oathhh can rightfully make his own, where he's holding the hammer this time for beating the reigning world champions.
Or you could put his team because he's wearing his backpack.
Oh,
you know?
could put
You
the team in the backpack there.
Whatever you prefer. Not to say he hard carried, because his whole team performed very
for
well.
sure.
They all deserve it. But hey, some memes just write themselves.
True. Eldritch Hounds, they find a big win up against the Camelot Kings, able to take them down and continue their reign up into the Order Division. We still got one more set to go today, so make sure you stick around. Atlantis Leviathans and Gilded Gladiators facing off right after this.
When you feel like it's over and nothing else matters, I know you feel so divided.